Hey everybody, tonight we're debating, was Muhammad's marriage to Aisha immoral? And we are starting right now with Big John Seals' opening statement. Thanks for being with us. John, the floor is all yours.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for Nadir for doing this debate. Not usually a topic most people want to tackle, so I'm glad to do it. All right, let's get into it. So, first, I'm going to apologize to the audience. My opening is going to be visceral intentionally so that we can really drive this point home. So, trigger warning to anyone that's listening. Today, I'm going to argue the topic with a grown man that I thought I would never have to do, but yet here we are. Was it morally wrong for a 50-year-old man to take a 6-year-old child out of their home, marry her with the intent to sleep with her at three years later at the ripe old age of 9? Yes, that's wrong. It just seems trivially true. In all honesty, I can end my opening here and let my opponent just dig his own grave while trying to explain to the world why it was a good thing for Muhammad to marry a child. Remember, today's topic isn't, was it socially acceptable at the time to marry a child? No, this topic is, was it morally wrong for Muhammad to marry her? So my opponent needs to convince me and to you that sleeping with an innocent small child that is nowhere near mentally or physically developed enough to not be harmed from having sex with a grown man was a good thing. Yes, this small child got to experience the event of being locked in a room with the grown man who took his grown man junk out and used it to enter her undeveloped body as a virgin before she ever had the cognitive ability to make a rational decision. Do you all remember being 9 years old? I'm sure you do. Now take a minute and imagine being 9 again, but with a 50-year-old man's junk inside your body. Does that sound like a good time to you? I'm guessing not. And because she was married, she had to experience this multiple times throughout her life. And as a matter of fact, Muhammad died when she was 18 years old. So this was all experienced from a child's perspective. Now, my opponent might say that she wanted it. Well, that's called grooming, which we can get into in the cross exam. But just remember how the Prophet Muhammad determined consent was. Well, according to Sahih al-Bukhari 6946, and I quote, I asked the Prophet, O Allah's messenger, should the woman be asked for her consent in their marriage? He said, yes. I said, a virgin, if asked, feels shy and keeps quiet. He said, her silence is consent. That's right, folks. Aisha could have just sat there silently and Muhammad would have been like, damn, she wants me, bro. But John, children matured faster back then. Aisha was much more like an adult. That's a load of crap. There's no data that says children matured faster back then. As a matter of fact, the data says the opposite. According to Dr. Mary Lewis, professor of bioarchaeology at the University of Reading, she studied nearly 1,000 adolescent skeletons from medieval England. Dr. Lewis found out, well, puberty began around 10 to 12, similar today. The onset of menstruation was delayed up to 3 years, occurring around the age of 15 for most girls and as late as 17 in London. Medieval males also took longer to fully mature than modern males. Poor diet, infections, and physical exertion contributed to this delayed development. Not only were they not maturing faster, they were actually maturing later, making Muhammad's marriage much worse. You might say that's the 1500s in London. Well, according to Aristotle, puberty started 14 years old. In his book History of Animals, written at 350 BC, he says, when twice 7 years old, in most cases, the male begins to engender seed, and at the same time, hair upon the pubes in a like manner. At the same age in females, the breasts swell, and his so-called catamina commence to flow, and the fluid resembles flesh blood. So good luck to my opponent proving that Aisha was just built different. She wasn't. She was a child. Now, you might say puberty is fine. If she bleeds, she can breed. 18 is just an arbitrary number that we just randomly pick, and we just impose liberal values and perform the fallacy of presentism. And we can get into that fallacy later. Well, we are both religious, so we both should believe in God, so we both should believe that one ought not harm innocent persons. And if my opponent wants to argue against that, well, Godspeed trying to convince us that we ought to harm innocent persons. Again, we're not talking about whether or not it was okay for the time. We're asking, is it moral? Was it a good thing for Muhammad to take his junk out and use it to enter a child so he could get his rocks off? The answer is no, because it's harm to an innocent person. The definition of harm I'm using in layman's terms here is, how would this person be if the harmful event didn't happen? Now get your pen and paper. We're going to get a little bit jargony here. There's two definitions I'm going to use, or two systems for harm. Definition of harm is harming an event E harms an individual S if and only if E causes a state of affairs that is a harm for S, or harm. A state of affairs T is a harm for an individual S, just in case the following two conditions hold true. T, or condition one, sorry, T falls within the scope of what would be intrinsically good or bad for S. And two, if S existed and T had not obtained, then S would be better off in some respect. Or we can use this other definition, which is harming. An event E harms an individual S if and only if E causes a state of affairs T to obtain, such that T is a harm for S with respect to E. Harm, a state of affairs T is a harm for an individual S with respect to an event E if and only if T is worse for S in some respect than some other state. U, such that U would have been obtained if E hadn't happened. Let me try to simplify this for you guys. Imagine two versions of Aisha's life. World A is what actually happens. At 9 years old, Aisha is sexually consummated by a 50-year-old man before her body is physically developed for it, before her brain has the capacity to understand what she's agreeing to, and before she has any real choice in the matter. World B, what could have happened instead? Aisha finishes growing up normally, her body develops naturally, her mind develops naturally, she retains her childhood, her bodily autonomy, and her freedom from adult sexual trauma during the most critical window of human development. The question is simple: which world is better for Aisha? The answer is obvious: World B, and that means World A harmed her. Well, what kind of harm? There are three distinct ways Aisha was made worse off. Physical harm. A 9-year-old's body is not built for sexual intercourse. This is an opinion. It's basic biology. World A exposes her to real physical damage that World P voids entirely. Psychological harm. The science we're going to present shows that sexual activity at this age doesn't just hurt the body, it derails normal brain and emotional development. World A takes away developmental goods, healthy formation of identity, emotion regulation, cognitive growth that World B would have given her. Autonomy harm. This one is simple. To consent to something, you have to actually understand what you're agreeing to. A 9-year-old doesn't have the capacity, not because of opinion or culture, but because her brain literally has not developed yet. Steinberg's research, which we are going to talk about, confirms this. So World A puts Aisha in a situation she could not have meaningfully chosen. This is worse than World B by definition. Do these things actually matter for Aisha? Someone might say, well, maybe those things don't count as real harm, but that doesn't hold up. Physical health, mental well-being, and the ability to make one's own choices are not arbitrary values. They are the most basic things that are good or bad for any human being. Nobody seriously argues otherwise. So yes, all three harms count. All three makes Aisha worse off. All three were caused by Muhammad's actions. Now, for this argument to be valid and sound, we need to satisfy three conditions of harm that we have provided in this argument. The first condition was the physical harm. Well, statistically speaking, this is very, very likely. I'm going to cite from 7 different peer-reviewed studies. Girls under 15 who marry face catastrophic elevated maternal death risk compared to adult women. Complications of pregnancy expose girls under 15 to extreme mortality risks. Young mothers face 2 to 5 times the maternal mortality rate than adult mothers. Young girls' physically immature pelvises are dangerously undersized for childbearing, leading to obstructed labor and obstetric fistula. I always have trouble saying that. A devastating, often premature injury. Obstetric fistula is a documented sexual health harm of child marriage driven by physical immaturity and forced early sexual activity. For the audience, obstetric fistula is a severe, often preventable childbirth injury. A hole between the birth canal and the bladder or rectum is caused by prolonged obstructed labor without timely medical intervention. It causes chronic, uncontrollable leaking of urine and feces, leading to severe social ostracism, infections, and physical injury. Child marriage is a primary risk factor for cervical cancer due to HPV acquisition at a young age before the cervix has matured. That's right. If you have sex with a child, you're more likely to get cancer. Now that we've established you most likely suffer physical harm, let's establish the psychological harm. Child marriage is directly associated with suicidal ideation and suicide attempts among adolescent girls, independent of other risk factors. Child brides experience systematically higher rates of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and social isolation than women who marry as adults. IPV experienced by children brides lead to depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Government data from Afghanistan links early and forced marriage directly to self-immolation. Girls married before 18 are twice as likely to be beaten, slapped, or threatened by their husband as girls married later, confirmed in 2-state Indian study. And considering Muhammad in the Quran says you could strike your wife if she doesn't listen, it's safe to assume that Aisha endured this type of abuse. Plus, we have hadiths that actually say that he hit her. Women married at young ages face elevated risk of both physical and sexual violence with unequal power dynamics between older husbands and child brides, the central causal mechanism. Now, our third point here is whether or not Aisha could consent to such behavior. Remember, Muhammad's form of consent is just silence, but fortunately for us, we have science on our side. Earlier in my opening, I mentioned the arbitrariness of picking the age of consent. This is simply not true. It was never arbitrary. Throughout human history, we have tried to determine optimal times when to consider a child an adult. And this is because we all have the intuition that they are innocent humans in need of protection. Have we done this perfectly? Absolutely not. Throughout history, we messed this up pretty bad. In one of those ways, it was correlating adulthood with puberty, basically saying if they start bleeding, they are adults. This is not a good mechanism. Another way in determining adulthood was to see if they were strong enough to carry armor. That was 21 years old. Why do Muslims never use that standard in history to determine an adult if they have the ability to consent? Just because people in the past have a standard does not mean it is the optimal moral standard. Aisha could not have consented to marriage because she did not possess the mental or cognitive abilities to do so according to science. This is not arbitrary. The primary reason we have selected the age of 18 years old from adulthood is because of the research of Lawrence Steinberg and Grace Eisenlog. In the paper, Using Developmental Science to Distinguish Adolescents and Adults Under the Law, here are a few quotes from the paper. The system that is responsible for self-control, regulating impulse thinking ahead, evaluating the rewards and costs of risky act, and resisting peer pressure, which is localized mainly in the prefrontal cortex, is still undergoing significant maturation well into the mid-20s. Under emotional arousing conditions, 18 to 21-year-olds demonstrated levels of impulse behavior and patterns of brain activity that were compared to those in the mid-teens. A second age boundary would be reasonable to set at 18 or older, and perhaps as old as 21 for legal matters, where thoughtful deliberation is easily disrupted by the inherently arousing circumstances in which the relevant decisions usually take place. So now that we've met our 3 points of evidence to show that Aisha was harmed, we can finish our opening with this simple syllogism. Premise 1, for any person X and innocent person Y, if X performs an action that harms Y, then X has done something immoral. Premise 2, Muhammad performed actions that harmed Aisha. Aisha was an innocent person. Conclusion, therefore Muhammad did something immoral. Conclusion 2, Muhammad's marriage to Aisha was immoral. With that being said, I will concede the rest of my time.
Thank you very much for that opening statement. Folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, I'm your host, Dr. James Coons. We are a fully neutral debate platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics, and only debates, no interviews. It's only debates here. Also, housekeeping type stuff first. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button as we have many more juicy debates coming up. But also, at the bottom right of your screen, you can see that we have launched the Modern Day Debate TikTok page. That is linked in the description box, and I'm also pinning that to the top of the chat right now. Check out the Modern Day Debate TikTok page for clips from these debates. With that, we're going to kick it over to Nadir. Thank you very much for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that, big boy. And so tonight's debate, was Aisha's marriage moral? So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen over here, if you don't mind. So the answer is yes. Under ideal conditions, it can be moral, and it should be moral. Now, the first point, as big boy here pointed out,
Pardon my
that
interruption.
this is a
I don't mean to
difficult
interrupt you,
topic.
Nadir. Just in
Yeah.
case you wanted us to see your screen right now, it doesn't show
Yeah.
yet.
Okay, here we
There
go.
it goes.
All right. Now, big boy here says, you see, this is a very difficult topic. Yes, you are right. This is a sensitive topic, which when you look at the different religions, only Islam is the only religion that discusses and debates all the topics. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's Aisha or scientific issues, whatever. I'll give you an example. Look at the religion of Hinduism. In Hinduism, in their books, they have a tradition called sati, which is the widow burning, where they throw little girls on funeral pyres. So, actually, my mother, because we're from India, she witnessed a sati burning. Here's my question here tonight. Where do you see all the debates and discussions on sati? They don't exist. Why? Because all religions do something called taqiyya. They hide and run away from the sensitive, difficult topics. Only Islam gives you the hit, HIT. Isn't an acronym. What it stands for is honesty, integrity, and transparency. We don't hide anything like the other religions do, like the Jewish people do, like the Christian people do. Like, for example, I'll give you another example. The topic, the Bible, the Quran, and modern science. Where is that debate? It the last time that was ever debated was in 1996 with Dr. Zakir Naik. Why? Because Christians know there are scientific errors in their books, and so they run away and hide from that topic when Dr. Zakir Naik exposed it. So that is why I'm a Muslim today, because of the hit. It's the only religion, that's a challenge for Big Boy here, that is the only religion that offers you the honesty, integrity, and transparency. We're not afraid of any topics. So the topic is Islam, is a marriage moral? I say yes. There's three forms of morality. You've got Islamic, it could be your source of morality, secular source of morality, and Christian source of morality. Now, my opponent said, "Oh well, we both believe in God, so God should be our source of morality." I agree, but guess what? He didn't judge by his book. Why is that? You're gonna find out. He was trying to talk like he's some kind of secular humanist, which I don't have a problem with. But you are a Christian. You should have judged me by your book or by some godly standard, which he did. He said, "Oh well, it's just hurt and suffering, and if you harm the child, stuff like that." So he's a poser. He's pretending to be something he is not. He's a Christian. You should judge me. This should be a Christian-Muslim debate. So we're going to find out what he's hiding in just a second here. Let us look at the Islamic source of morality. Based upon, let's read this hadith together here. I hope that's clear. It's you guys can read on my screen. You just hit pause on your YouTube screen if you can't read it. Okay. Allah's messenger said to me, you were shown to me in a dream. An angel brought you to me, wrapped in a piece of silken cloth, and he said to me, "This is your wife." Here's my point. This destroys Big Boy's argument that the marriage of Aisha was based on desire, just using some of his terminology to get your rocks off, something putting your part, or I can't even remember some of the vulgar terminology he used to get a shock effect out of you. But what we see here, that's not the case. The marriage of Aisha was not based upon desire, that you're looking upon a child and you getting attracted to her. That is not the case. If you read the story in context, we see that this was divinely ordained. This was not based upon his own desire. So that destroys about 20% of his presentation because it was based upon, a man getting aroused by a child. As we can see, that was not the reason for the marriage of Aisha. Secondly, he says, well, what about the physical harm that is caused by a child marriage? But wait a second here. You and I, we believe in a God, and that now we see this was divinely ordained. God could protect that child from any kind of harm. So there you go. The argument is defeated there. So was Aisha different than other 9-year-old girls? Let us find out. It says over here, I'm going to read from the Quran inside chapter 33, verse 32. O wives of the Prophet, you are not like any amongst the women. You are not like any of these. So to compare Aisha with just your average 9-year-old girl, it has been refuted right here. Now we know. So let's talk about these differences. What are some of the differences between the wives of the Prophet and the regular people? Well, of course, there's spiritual differences. They cannot get remarried afterward. They're considered the mothers of believers. The list goes on. But wait a second. Are there physical differences between the wives of the Prophet and the regular human being? Yes, there is. Let us read very careful. Young children typically focus on play, learning, and which is part of normal childhood development, rather than preserving complex teachings or documenting historical events, which is what Aisha did. She narrated 2,000 hadith from her childhood between 9 and 8. That's not something a child does. Children, I have 2 daughters. They play with toys. You got to twist their arm to go to Quran class. They're not interested. They want to play on their laptops, iPads, blah, 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 blah. But this is a child who narrated 2,000 hadith. Go ahead. Just try to remember 10 facts from when you were between 9 and 12. Most people, we said 9 and 18, most people struggled to recall many specific details from childhood or early teenage years, especially ordinary events. There are no occurrences in history of anyone consciously acting as a historian, scholar, and active biographer while they are still children, and that's my challenge. Aisha was not like a normal child. So all of this nonsense he was giving us about the mental hurt and psychological damage of childhood gets blown out of the water right here, because Aisha is not like ordinary children. She's some kind of miracle child. So basically, to sum up, what is Aisha? She is like some kind of like a gospel writer, just like you got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. She is basically playing the same role, but as a child. So if my opponent is not able to show Aisha as just like any normal 9-year-old, then 95% of its presentation goes down the water. Let's look at secular source of morality. Okay? Now, the secular source of morality, they might do something called the cherry-picking fallacy. Remember the hadith which I showed you where it was God ordained for the marriage of Aisha? To say, okay, I reject the hadith. Okay. If you reject the hadith, then that gives me equal right to reject the hadith of Aisha. So we have to be fair over here. If you say, okay, well, I accept the hadith, but Prophet Muhammad was not being truthful, he's just trying to justify his behavior. Okay, I will say the same thing about the hadith of Aisha. It's authentic, but she's not being truthful. So let us read it. If you read it in its proper context, then there's no problem. So, as we can see from a secular point of view, it served the purpose of a greater good. No harm was done to Aisha. He never showed any example of harm done to Aisha. Rather, he just inferred it. Okay, so then it's completely moral from a secular point of view. Now let's go to the Christian source of morality. Okay, this is Christian source of morality when it comes to little girls. But save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Okay, well, first it says, and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but you save these little girls who are virgin. But wait a second here. That means you got to perform a virginity test upon them. Forced vaginal examinations is your standard of morality. Now, just compare that with the marriage of Aisha. So based from a biblical point of view, the marriage of Aisha is okay. If you can force little girls into vaginal examinations, then this marriage should be okay as well. Now, some Christians say, okay, well, because the text does say that save for yourself every girl who has not slept with a man. Some Christian volunteers said, oh, but we'll just ask them, are you a virgin? Of course, that's silly. Of course they're going to say they are, but look at this guy. You're ready to behave like a psychopath with these little girls. You're ready to kill them if they say no, so of course. So the Bible gives you guidance inside this verse over here, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 17 and 20. It gives you the virginity test, okay? So that's a challenge for my opponent tonight. And what about the psychological damage that you were talking about, big boy? Huh? What about all of when you force a girl to give a vaginal examination upon them, doesn't that cause some psychological damage? Okay, so that is, if you compare it with the 3 standards of morality, then the marriage of Aisha is perfectly fine. Now, finally, let's get to some of the challenges. He never did tell us today, what is the age? What is the right age for marriage? You see, he ran away. And we also know why he didn't use a Christian Bible as a source of morality. He was doing taqiyya. He was deceiving us today by pretending to be a secular humanist. You're not a secular humanist. You are a Christian. Yet because he ran away from his Bible because it has forced vaginal examinations upon little girls, and you keep the virgins for yourself. That's why he ran away from that. So let us look at the challenges here. And he must answer these things, because then you know what happens, big boy, if you don't answer. Then I'm going to come after you in this cross-examination period. All right, so just do the right thing. If you don't know the answer, then just say so. The marriage of Aisha was determined at 6 and consummated at 9. Aisha had a very special gift, unlike any other child in history. She would document, memorize, and teach everything from the biography of Muhammad to from the biography to the theology of the Prophet of Islam. She basically played the role of a gospel writer. As a result, she narrated 2,000 hadith and became a central source of knowledge, shaping an entire religious tradition. Children don't play this type of role. Okay. It would have been impossible for anyone to predict that a young girl at the age of 6 could have this unique talent. So Big Boy is going to have to answer for us tonight. How is it that you can look at a child and know she had this talent? This could only have been from God. Unless he is able to provide from us some explanation, then this argument is going to backfire. It's going to show that it's a powerful evidence for Islam. Let's look at the second challenge. Child historian scholar, can you point to us historical examples of a child who consciously acted as a historian, scholar, an active biographer, systematic with laser-like precision, preserving the teachings and life of a major religious figure? It could be anybody. It's impossible. Children don't play this role. So his whole presentation was about some normal average child. But as we can see, she was a super child, some kind of miraculous child. Let us look at the third challenge for my opponent here. Man-made religions equal man-made scriptures. What does that mean? What that means is, look at all the religions in the world. What do you notice about them? They're all written by men. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're all men. Women played almost no role. You can't say absolute none. There's some who wrote poems and songs. But this is something unusual. A woman who is the author of your gospel, or you could say the author of your scripture. This ill befits what we know a man-made religion to be. So these are the three challenges which I have for my opponent over here, which he must answer, because if he does not or cannot answer these, then his argument of Aisha backfires. Rather than trying to as something which disproves Islam, it actually is a powerful evidence for Islam, and I believe my time is up.
With that, thank you very much for that opening. I'm going to let me just see if there we go. I'm going to kick us into the open dialogue, but first, quick housekeeping note. If you haven't yet, hit that like button. We do appreciate your support, folks. With that, we'll kick it into the open dialogue. Gentlemen, the floor is all yours.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, Big Boy, what I was asking you here today, look, in your book, it has a standard of morality where girls are forced vaginal examinations upon little girls. So my question is, based on this, and you take the little virgins for yourself, as we read in Numbers chapter
Wait.
31,
Hold
17.
on just one sec. Are we talking about Christianity or are we talking about Aisha?
So what I'm doing, look, when we say about moral values, it's got to come from a source. So you compare Aisha with the morality of the Bible. Okay, you have to have some kind of source of morality, right?
Yeah, morality in the Bible. Where does God say the morality comes from in your Bible? In the Bible, where does he say?
Okay, we as Muslims and Christians, we believe morality comes from God, right?
Yeah, but in the Bible, right? Because you're saying a moral standard. Where does God say the moral standard is in the Bible?
Well, this is your, okay, can I share my screen over here real quick? I'll show you your moral standard in just a second over here.
No. Where does he say the moral standard is written?
Okay, so this is an immoral act about forcing virginity.
So you're not going to answer already?
Yes.
Where does he say the moral standard is written? Does God say the moral standard is written in the Bible?
Okay, so you tell me, look, Big Boy, you tell me this. You're telling me this is immoral?
Yeah, oh sure, it's immoral. So anyways.
Can you share my screen real quick?
It's already showing as shared.
So this is not the topic of the debate. This is not the topic of the debate.
Hold on a second. It is.
Hold on.
Look, I'm showing you your
let me answer your question.
Big Boy.
Let me answer your question. I'm going to explain why it's not the topic of the debate. So you're asking where the moral standard comes from. Well, in the scripture, it says that it's written on our hearts. The moral standard is our intuition that's built upon us.
Was a forced virginity test also written on your heart?
If there's a forced virginity test that happened to be immoral.
Vaginal test, I'm sorry. Vaginal examination.
If it actually happened to be immoral. But I'm not here to argue whether or not
was
that actually happened.
Was that forced vaginal examination
if there was a forced vaginal examination that happened, if it happened, I'm not here to argue whether it did or didn't. I'm not here to get into the context. I'm not here to get into the context of the Bible. If it happened, it's immoral. Now,
Okay,
let me
thank
ask you a
you for
question because
disproving the Bible.
I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you a W. You're actually gonna get a W here,
What's
right?
a
Because you
W
mentioned
mean? I don't
something.
know. Yeah.
A W is a win. You're gonna take a win.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna give you this debate because you said in your debate you said that if I reject the hadith that says that God gave Muhammad a vision, then you would reject the hadith that says that she was 6 to 9 years old, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I reject the hadith. You're to reject the hadith where it says she's 6 or 9 years old.
Well, I'll take the win because you see,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Just do you reject the hadith?
No, I don't reject the hadith. See, the thing is with John, I'm answering you. When the
So you're
problem
doubling
is,
back.
John, allow me to, I let you talk. Now you let me talk.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
issue is if you read the story of Aisha in its proper context,
Mhm.
okay, then there is no problem like the issues which you raised. So the problem is you are rejecting the hadith because you have seen that it's going to destroy all your arguments which you have raised. But the problem here is you think, okay, I can get out of this and I'll just give Nadir the win because I'll just go reject the hadith. But that's not going to work for you tonight because
But that's what you said you'd do.
we have three amazing challenges on Aisha, which prove that this actually is from God. It is you're rejecting the unrejectable. So rejecting the hadith.
So you're doubling back then.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's fine if you want to double back. That's fine. But you are doubling back. You're not going to reject the hadith because I reject the part where he actually got it from God. Because all we have from the hadith is that Muhammad said he got it from God.
Okay. So then
Right?
by your own, okay, so what we can say is that you don't have an argument against Islam because if you take it within its proper context, then all your arguments fail. So that
Is it possible? Is it logically possible that Muhammad is recording events of what he did, but he just lied about getting a prophecy from God?
I have already answered that. I answered that by saying if you claim that he just tried to justify his behavior, then I say Aisha is not telling the truth. You see, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
How did Aisha know he got the prophecy?
The point is this: once you start rejecting the parts of our scripture which is uncomfortable for you, then that gives me equal right to do it.
I believe Muhammad said that he got a vision, that he had a dream.
Okay.
Right? Here, watch this. I had a dream earlier today. I was laying down. I took a nap before the debate, and I had a dream that Allah showed himself to me to tell me that the Prophet Muhammad's a pedophile.
Well, you cannot use that word because that is a scientific error on your part because pedophilia is prepubescent.
But Allah told me.
Okay. So the question you're asking is kind of moving the goalpost. The question you're asking here is, well, how do we know that Islam is true and the words of the Prophet of Islam is true? I debated that last week in the debate. Yeah. Is Islam true? Okay, but that's not
you're missing my point. I can accept the hadith. I can accept Muhammad said these things. I don't have to accept he actually received the prophecy. I can even accept he had a dream. I can accept he had a dream, and in his dream Allah showed himself and he said he should marry. I can accept all those things are true. No, that doesn't change any of my argument. It doesn't mean actually Allah gave him the prophecy, right? Is that logically true?
Well, now hold on a second. The problem is that you're mixing two debates here. How do we know Islam is true versus the age of Aisha? Is it moral? According to the Islamic standard, secular standard, and Christian standard, it is moral. I've shown you from the Christian. You should be debating from the Bible, which you are not.
Sure. Let me.
Ashamed
why
of
should
the forced
I? Why should I
vaginal
debate from the
examination
Bible?
verses.
Why should I debate from the Bible? Can you make that argument?
You should say, look, based upon our standard of morality.
Where does our moral standard come from again? Does it come from the Bible?
From God. It comes from God.
Does it come from the Bible?
From you as a Christian, you can argue this from our Christian point of view. Does it
come from the Bible?
From a Christian point of view, you should argue. Look, I'm teaching you how to debate here, which is not right. Okay. What you should have done tonight here is you should have came here and said, look, morality is based on some standard. It can either come from the Quran.
Does Christian morality come from the Bible? Yes or no?
Allow me to finish. It could come from biblical morality. You came here tonight trying to pretend to be some kind of secular humanist. Okay, you're a poser, basically. You should have came here tonight and you should have argued from the perspective of the Bible.
You keep telling me what I have to do, but not why.
Yeah, and then you should have shown why based on
why
the
do I have standard. To why do I have to pull?
Okay, then you don't have a standard of morality.
Moral standard.
You don't have a standard of morality.
The
Okay.
Christian standard of morality comes from what again? I've already
Okay.
explained this to you, right?
It
It
should
says
come
in the
from your
scripture,
Bible.
because you say it has to come from the Bible,
Look,
right? Well, in the
what
Bible,
here,
it says,
here's
hold on, let me finish. Let
yeah.
me finish. In the Bible, it says that God's law is written upon our hearts. So there's is intuition, this thing that we intuitively know is true, that it's
Mhm.
wrong to harm a child. Now, let me ask you a question, right? We have two world scenario, like I gave in my opening, right? We have world A, where Aisha goes through the exact same things that she just did. Everything's exactly the same. Nothing changes. World B, everything's exactly the same except for two conditions. Instead of marrying Muhammad and having sex with him, she's adopted by Muhammad and was raised by him. So she ends up being a wonderful mother of Islam. She ends up doing all the hadith. She does all the exact same
Mhm.
things. Can you tell me why it was necessary or why it was good for him to
Mhm.
marry her and to have sex with her in world A?
So the question is, what you're asking is
Mhm.
really not, in a sense, going to prove that one is moral and one is immoral. What you're asking is, why did God choose to do it through marriage versus adoption? We don't know. This is all part of
No,
God's
it's
will
not
and
what I
plan.
asked you. Not what I asked
Okay.
you.
You're asking why was the president? Of course, Aisha played this amazing supernatural role. I think your question is, why did it have to be through marriage? Isn't that what you just asked me?
No. My question is, you have two worlds, right?
Mhm.
Both worlds, for all intents and purposes, are exactly the same except for two conditions. The only condition that changes is she does not marry the prophet and she does not
Right.
have sex with the prophet.
Mhm.
Everything else remains the same. She still becomes this wonderful person in Islam. She still writes all these hadiths. She
Mhm.
still is around the prophet, all these things. Which world is a better world?
Well, it would depend. I would think, based on going back to what the Quran said. The Quran said that the wives of the prophet are not like any other women, and we have proof tonight there is not just spiritual
So,
differences in
so there's
Aisha.
something magical that happens when
Hold
his
on a second.
penis enters her? Or,
Let me
like,
finish. Okay.
okay,
Okay, you're grasping at straws here. Okay, you're trying to
okay,
create some kind of shock effect, but it's not going to work with me. All right, I'm going to let you know that, big boy. Don't go for
okay.
those type of tactics. All right.
So, but what's the
Okay.
magical
Well,
thing that
let me
happens?
answer
Okay.
you. We have also seen that there are physical differences in Aisha. Now, to what extent are these physical differences? We don't know. So it's an argument from silence. We weren't given all the details, but what we know is that she is some
Can
kind
you
of
can you tell
miraculous
me what
child.
my question was? Because you're not answering
Yeah.
it.
You're saying which one would be in a better world that it would just playing the role of as a wife, or versus, let's just say, an adopted child or something like that. I think that which is better to me, I think, is what you're asking, right?
No. The
I'm
world. No,
saying,
you say,
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
re-explain the question, right? If you had a
Okay,
pen and paper, that'd be great. So there's
yeah,
two
okay,
worlds, right? For
yeah.
all intents and purposes, all events are exactly the same in two worlds. There's no difference except for two. The only things that change is the wedding ceremony and the intercourse. Those two things are taken out. Which world
Mhm.
is better?
Well, there's no way you can answer this question, because what we are seeing with the marriage of Aisha, that this is some kind of miraculous event going on. And so what you're
You'd have to
asking me,
argue that it's better.
hold on,
You
John,
have to
you're
argue it's better.
asking me to interfere within some kind of miraculous act of God and try to correct it. There's no way you can answer these questions. So I'll answer you very clearly. I don't know, and and people should not spend their time worrying about these type of silly questions. Okay.
Well,
So
I think you would
yeah,
have to argue that
yes,
it was a good thing because Allah commanded it.
yes, that and through Aisha, the religion of Islam, the foundation was laid,
Hmm.
and
So you can answer it.
so there. Yeah, no, we don't know why. I guess to answer your question, you're questioning why certain things happen the way they did. Okay, and no,
No,
we don't
that's
have
not what I'm
answers.
doing. That's
Well,
not what
okay,
I'm
well,
doing.
then
Right?
that's
It's
fine.
called a reductio.
We
It's
need to. I
you
don't
said
see this.
well,
Yeah.
hold on. Can you explain? You said you were teaching me how
Yeah.
to debate. Can you explain what
Yeah.
a reductio is?
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is the questions you are asking today, I don't know and I don't care. And it is irrelevant to the topic. Was the marriage of
You said,
Aisha
hold on. Do
moral?
you know what
I will
reductio
go,
is?
listen, the issue tonight, is this a moral marriage? Now, if you have nothing more to add upon this, then let's just end the debate here and let's
You
just move
don't
on.
know what a reductio is? I
I
can
don't
explain
care.
it to you
These
if you
things
want
are
me to.
irrelevant. Look, this is your opportunity This is your opportunity to present credible evidence to prove that the marriage of Aisha was immoral. You said, no, I can't do that in light of the context of how the
I
hadith.
didn't say no.
Okay. Well, this is your opportunity. Okay. And I'm
Yeah.
going to give you the chance to argue
Sure.
a case that this was an immoral marriage. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So if we have those two worlds, if we remove the sexual intercourse, she's going to be better off because she's just not physically or mentally mature or ready enough for having sex with a grown man. She's going to receive pain. She's going to receive damage. She's going to have more likely for complications. She's going to have mental trauma. She's going to have emotional trauma. For all intents and purposes, if we remove this singular event, right, her life is going to improve unless you can show me data otherwise.
So what you are doing right now, you are being bad, B-A-D-D. Let me explain what that means. This is an acronym meaning born again, double down. Okay, he's just doubling down on his original presentation. But you are in a debate. You need to go with the flow. I have refuted all of that by showing you that the marriage of Aisha, this was something, two arguments which answered that. Okay, the first one, whether this was something God ordained. So through the miracle, God can protect Aisha. God can do whatever it takes to make things right.
I just want to be clear. Hold on.
No,
I'm just clarifying.
No, let me answer my second argument. My second argument was that she is physically different, not just spiritually different. So therefore, your argument of harm, which you've never actually showed Aisha was harmed, you're just assuming it, you know, and so that refutes your argument.
Well, it's not an assumption; it's a probabilistic case, right? We don't have Aisha's body. We can't say for certain on absolutely. You know, maybe Aisha came out of the womb as a full-grown adult. We can't say for absolutely certain. No, but here's the thing: probabilistically, that's not the case. All the data that we have from everybody in the past, going all the way back to BC times, says that people matured or started their puberty around the ages of 13 or 14 years old, not 9 years old.
No, that's not true.
Because hold on. You want, I let you speak. And because there was issues with like nutrition, there was issues with health, there was all these problems, there was less caloric intake. The law of thermodynamics says they can't mature faster. They don't have the energy to do it. They're going to mature later. So unless you have some groundbreaking study that shows how we break the law of thermodynamics back then and people just somehow ended up maturing faster, I'd be very interested to see that. And the second point, even if they physically matured faster, cognitively they can't. There's no data that the brain matures until past the age of 18. Your brain cannot mature to the point where you can make rational decisions and consent to things until you're much older in life.
Yeah. Okay. Let me answer. You've given me a lot there. So I'm gonna, James, I'm just going to share my screen here if you don't mind. Okay. It says over here. Okay. You said this as far when the age of puberty is. I'm quoting from John Hopkins Medicine. For a girl, the stages of puberty starts around the age of 8. Okay. So your misinformation there that you thought it comes from 13, this is not true. Okay. Now, in terms of all of these points that you're bringing up, that her brain...
You're misrepresenting my point.
Hold on. No, I'm going to talk about her brain maturity stuff, which you have...
But you misrepresented my point on this.
Okay, well, allow me to finish, and then you can correct me. As for the brain maturity, again, you are being BADD again. You're being bad. You're just doubling down on your original presentation. It was refuted. You need to go with the flow. That means you need to answer my refutations in which I pointed out her brain is different. Her brain memorized 2,000 hadiths when she was a child. Look, the challenge I gave you is, look, think about when between 9 and 18 years old. How much can you narrate with laser-like precision of your mother or somebody you lived with? Maybe 10, 15 hadiths you could narrate, maybe 30, I don't know. Nobody can do 2,000 like a computer. So no, her brain was not like everybody else's. And it all goes back. You see, the problem is, John, you're a poser. You're pretending to act like some kind of secular humanist versus a Christian, all right? These are the type of arguments of secular humanists who don't believe in miracles. What? There's no such thing as a God. Once the miracle issue enters into the equation, it's game over. God can take over from there, protect that child, and do whatever he needs to do. And we do know that there is something miraculous going on with this child.
You're making a lot of points here. You're making a lot of points here.
All right, go ahead, because you need to go with the flow, answer answer my objections.
Yeah, so your first point about the ages of puberty here, I'm not sure where you get this. Most of the data says that it happens between 11 to 12, but let's just grant it, right? In modern day times, people start the age of puberty around 8. My data didn't say that. My data wasn't modern times. My data was in the past. I was talking about BC. I was talking about the 1500s, the 1600s. This is when Aisha would have been. Now you're stating that Aisha has the ability to memorize and she's really intelligent. That has nothing to do with the brain development I was talking about. We're talking about the ability to make wise decisions, to think rational thoughts, to to understand risk factors. That's all part of the prefrontal cortex. It doesn't come later. You can memorize things. You can be a flip book. You can go through things. I memorize this, but you're also saying she's doing this at a much later age. All the research that I saw says that she didn't start writing and documenting these things until after Muhammad. So she would have been at the ages between 18 and 20. So it seems like, unless again, you have different sources, seems like you're just kind of making that up. And then you just kind of talked about like secularism. I'm not too sure you keep bringing up the secularist thing. It just feels like an ad hom point. Well, and I forgot, what was your third point again? What was the third point? There's something I want to talk about on that. You said a lot of things.
I don't remember.
Completely forgot.
The reason why you're a poser is because you are not coming from a biblical point of view. All right.
I am. It says morality is written on our hearts.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Was the forced
That's a biblical point of view.
virginity examination written on your heart?
Yeah, if that event happened, it would have been morally wrong. But you keep wanting to focus on that.
The vaginal examination is
okay.
Watch
Watch this.
Okay.
I just oh my goodness gracious! I just received a revelation. God is real, but the Bible is not real, and objective morality is still true. Can you actually address the debate now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just going back to, you just can't imagine or you can't understand how a little girl can play the role of Aisha without any kind of harm or damage to her psychology or her physical body.
So, wait, is your argument that she is 9 years old and normatively she would have been harmed, but God did some miraculous event specifically for her?
That is correct.
Can you prove it?
Well, yeah, we have. Well, the thing is, when you say, can you prove it? Yes, I can. But that was last week in my debate, Is Islam True? In which I presented scientific, prophetic, archaeological evidence proving Muhammad is a true prophet. So that was for that debate. But look, I think the issue
I'm just supposed to take your word for it.
John, there's no point of us going any more further because you have refused to accept or to understand how God works miraculously through people's lives, as stated clearly in the Hadith, that this was God ordained. You are a Christian, but you're trying to debate like a secular humanist. Okay, so if we have kind of reached an impasse where we're just saying the same thing. I'm saying this is God will protect Aisha. There's no evidence of any harm to her. And I have made many challenges which you have not been able to answer. Okay. I said, look, how can you look at a 6-year-old child and know that she had this amazing ability?
Now, you said,
can you answer that?
You said Muhammad never hurt her, right?
Never, no.
Okay, you take Hadith?
You're talking about the Hadith about where she hit him in the chest. Okay,
and she said it hurt.
Yeah, but this has nothing to do with what we are talking about. We are talking about
do you
take the
Quran where it says that you could strike your wife?
That is off topic. You see, the problem is.
But you said it never hurt her.
Hold on a second, John. You're feeling the pressure.
Did God miraculously protect her when Muhammad struck her?
No. You see, because she was a child, and the Prophet would not only just hit her, he also hit people in the chest. Abu Bakr, that was just the way he would communicate. But she was a child at the time. And we have the Hadith where it said, as a woman, the Prophet of Islam never hit a woman. But the topic of tonight's debate. Okay, the topic of tonight's debate is this marriage moral?
Yeah.
See, the problem
is...
Okay,
and we could say it's immoral. Hold on. We could say it's immoral.
One person at a time.
We could say it's immoral.
You are feeling the pressure tonight where you're jumping into wife beating, you're jumping into all these other issues.
Yeah, is it immoral to beat your wife?
You cannot, or you've been at this.
Is it immoral to beat your wife?
You have not been able to argue an intelligent case that the marriage of Aisha was immoral. That is off topic. It is irrelevant to what we are talking about.
Yeah, it's exactly on topic. I'll explain why. Because the argument, hold on, the argument is, was it moral? Was it moral? The marriage, right?
Yes.
Now, if you're going to state that it's immoral to beat your wife, but in the same context, Muhammad says it's perfectly fine to hit your wife in a marriage, then you have a contradiction.
He never said that. Okay.
It's an if-then conditional. I'm not saying he did. I'm saying
Never
it's an
said that.
if-then
Okay.
conditional. If he did say you can hit your wife,
Mhm.
right?
No, he didn't. Yeah.
And you're saying it's wrong to hit your wife,
Right.
would you have a contradiction?
If that was the case, but the Prophet of Islam made it very clear the hadith said he never hit a woman, and the hadith
Okay.
also he did explain that you should never hit a woman. Okay.
So then what
Now,
is 65 for?
Okay, so the problem in the hadith you're quoting, Aisha
That's
at
not
that
hadith, it's the
time
Quran.
was a child. Okay, therefore, as a child, the rules are a little bit different, but that in no way proved that the marriage of Aisha
Wait, is your
was
argument because she
immoral.
was a child, he was
Okay,
allowed to hit her?
now it's my time to ask you some questions, okay? Because you are
But did you just say
had-
because
yeah,
she was a child, he was allowed to hit her?
you can well the question is it like a nudge in the chest, a playful nudge? So again, if it's
He
something
said
like
it
that, then that's
hurt her.
perfectly fine. Okay, yeah, of course. You can playfully nudge somebody and it could still cause a little pain. Okay. So the issue here tonight is this marriage moral or not? All right. Now, as you have stated earlier,
I got
today,
just a quick clarifying question.
Yeah,
Quick clarifying
yeah.
question.
this
If
is
God
off
had
topic. Yeah.
if God had not protected her, because you said God divinely protected her. If God had not protected her, would it be immoral?
What I was pointing out is God divinely protected her from the harms which you pointed out in your opening introduction, because as we can see the big part of where the big debate loss which you have suffered here tonight, the premise of your argument was Muhammad looked at a child and got physically aroused or something like that.
Question.
Okay,
My question remains unanswered.
I'm taking it back to the debate topic. That is not the
debate
case.
topic, bro.
Okay. No, John, you are off topic because you have already conceded.
If God had not divinely protected her, would it have been immoral? It would have been immoral.
If God would not have divinely and allowed for some harm, well, this all goes back to would God allow some kind of harm
So it
to
would have
take
been.
place?
So then you have to prove to me that God protected her.
Yeah. Well, there is no record or anything inside our hadith. Okay, I'll prove it to you right here. There's no record or any reference from our hadith collection, our historical collection, that his marriage to Aisha caused harm. Now, here's
That's
a proof.
an argument from
Hold
silence.
on. No, John, let me finish. People are innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. Muhammad is innocent of any crime you commit. I mean, so
Except
much.
sleeping
Same
with a
thing
child.
with you. Okay,
Yeah,
that
he's
has
guilty of
all been
sleeping with a child.
refuted. You're
And
being
taking
bad
sex slaves
again.
and beating
You're
women.
being bad, John, meaning born again, double down. You're just doubling down on your original arguments, which have been refuted. Look, you have already came here and said, look, if you, based on the hadith about the marriage being divinely ordained, if you accept that, I don't have a case. You have already accepted that. Let's move on. There's no.
Dog, you've just lost the debate. You already admitted that it'd be morally wrong unless God protected her, and you cannot prove to me that God protected her. So just looking at hold on,
proven guilty.
Just looking at probability cases and just taking hypotheses, right, and throwing them on the table, the probability of God protecting her is very, 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 very low. As a matter of fact, it's so low, I'm perfectly fine in rejecting it until you bring evidence to that. If you can't bring evidence to that, I could literally go into the other room, I could slap my wife in the head and be like, it's fine because God protected her.
Yeah.
And you'd have nothing. You'd have nothing until somebody reported against it.
The problem is you're being a poser. As I said, you're arguing from a secular humanist point of view who refuse to accept the concept of miracles, refuse to accept God divinely intervening and making things right. They don't accept any of this stuff. So yeah, I've had this type of discussions with secular humanists. But look, the issue is this. Once you reject the hadith, which I quoted, it causes a chain reaction. What we have shown is that the marriage of Aisha is divinely ordained, and you are just now whipping.
How do you know it's divinely ordained?
Let us move on. Let us move on to my.
How do you know it's divinely ordained? You're using God did it as your argument, bro. Your whole argument is God did it, so therefore we're good. But
my whole argument is read it in the context. The context clearly states that this was a divinely ordained appointment, and now 90% of all your arguments go down the toilet. So now I will ask you again. And
all right. Well, the Bible says that if somebody comes and preaches a gospel not like this, like Muhammad did, right? Yes. then it's false. So because my
Okay.
Bible is divinely appointed, then Muhammad's a false prophet, and his wasn't divinely appointed. Therefore, God did not protect Aisha.
No, okay. Okay, I will answer you here. You brought up the Bible. Finally, you stop being a poser tonight and you're arguing from a Christian point of view. Yeah, so once you bring up the Bible, you can argue Islam is a false religion, but you cannot argue that the marriage was immoral because in the Bible, there is forced vaginal examinations
Wait, so then you
upon
back
little
up, then you're
girls.
backing up on God
Okay,
protected her
so
part.
the question which I have asked you, which you kind of ran away from, but I'm glad you're bringing up the Bible.
Yeah.
If you can force a vaginal examination,
It's
upon
fine. God
little
protected
girls,
them. It's fine.
then
God
how
protected
is
them.
it the marriage is wrong with a
It's
little
fine.
girl?
God. It's fine. God protected them.
Then there you
God
go.
God just
both have
protected
this.
them.
Allahu Akbar. You see the same.
But then
answer.
Islam is false.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on a second. But wait a second. Hold on a second. John, you see, I'm glad you brought up that issue that God would have protected those little girls. But now let's read the context of Numbers 31, verse 17
You want to run.
18.
You want to run
John,
from defending
stop,
your
please don't
actual
interrupt
religion
me.
and the actual point of
John,
the topic.
please
What's
stop
the point of the
interrupting
topic?
me.
Is it Numbers 31?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that the point?
I'm sorry. Numbers.
Listen. Here's the
okay.
thing, Nadir.
Moderator,
If you want to
James,
debate
he's
Numbers
not letting me talk.
31,
We allow me to talk. Okay.
If you want to debate Numbers 31,
James, okay, you brought up the Bible here, and I'm going to
if you
answer.
want to
really
debate
Okay.
go ahead.
Well,
Okay.
we can
Allow-
break it
allow
into
me to
2 minute.
finish.
We can break it into 2-minute segments.
Please, let's do 2 minutes back and forth.
Oh God. All right, fine.
I
Okay.
suppose
So
we've
now
gone-
I'm
we've
going
gone
to
a good
take 2
amount for
minutes
the
to answer you
All
now.
right. Yeah, just 1 second, Nadir. We've gone a good amount for the open dialogue, so we can switch it into 2-minute segments for the remainder of the open dialogue. And then, folks, we do have the Q&A coming up shortly. So if you have questions, submit them. We do want sincere questions and questions that are on the topic. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button. We appreciate your support. With that, we'll give it over to Nadir. We'll give you 2 minutes, Nadir.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here real quick here. All right. So I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong verse number. I apologize. It's Numbers 31, 17 through 18. It states very clear there. But save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. So you've got to now force a vaginal examination against their will upon these little girls, and you take the little virgins for yourself. So let's use this Numbers 31, 18 as our standard of morality and judge the marriage of Aisha, which you should have done. You should have brought up the Bible from the very beginning, but you wanted to be a poser tonight and pretend to be a secular humanist, okay? Because you know that you will never be able to argue an intelligent case based on this. So based on Numbers 31, 18, the marriage of Aisha is perfectly moral, okay? Because you have to perform a virginity test upon these girls. All right. And when you said, look, okay, but I can use the same thing. You said that, okay, God would have protected them. True, but it doesn't work in this context. Why? Because this is a punishment from God. Because what the Bible is saying that if they are not virgins, then you behave like a psychopath and you stab them to death. Okay. So my excuse, what I was using for the hadith, does not work with the Bible. So if you can behave with like a psychopath with little girls, then certainly you can accept the marriage of Aisha. Go ahead, please.
I don't need 2 minutes. That's a Tukul fallacy, and it actually doesn't address the topic. And I'd rather actually have my opponent stay on the topic.
The standard of morality. I'm giving you a biblical standard of morality.
One second. Is there? Forgive me, just because it moves so fast. We'll give it to John for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't need 2 minutes. It's a Tukul fallacy.
Okay, I'll answer.
It is not the point of the topic. It's not the topic today. I'd rather my opponent actually argue the point of the topic.
Okay, you got it.
Sure. I'll take 2 minutes to answer that. No, that it is very much. It is just as much on topic as the scientific references you brought up to show harm done to a girl during, a child relationship or child sex or something like that. You've brought up in your initial period. Look, you brought up science, and you used that as your standard of morality. But I'm saying, wait a second. I mean, of course, it's good to do that, but as a Christian, why didn't you bring the Bible up as a standard of morality? This is called taqiyya. You see, you are hiding the evil, wicked teachings in your book. So you see, you should have brought up both. You see, the Bible, using this as a standard of morality to judge the marriage of Aisha, is just as valid as you bringing up science to judge the marriage of Aisha. One is not relevant while the other one is not. But since you are a Christian, you have pretty much embarrassed your Christian friends that you still refuse to behave like a Christian inside this debate and argue as a Christian. So no, it is very much. If you, I pointed out Islamic morality. You see, when you talk about morality, there's got to be a standard. Either science, you got secular humanism, you got Islamic, you've got Christian. These are your standards of morality. I have shown you each standard of morality in my opening presentation, and I've shown you that the marriage of Aisha is perfectly moral and acceptable according to all of them. Okay, but what John is doing, he's saying, oh, no, let's just erase the biblical one. No! And he wants to have only 3 standards of morality. The problem is that the things in your Bible, it is indefensible. That is because only the religion of Islam gives you the hit. Honesty, integrity, transparency.
And that's time.
Only the religion
Okay,
of
so
Islam
just
does, not
so I
Christianity.
think I understand right that you guys are saying, okay, well, as John mentioned, the topic is, was Muhammad's marriage to Aisha immoral? And now it's a question of what standard you guys want to use. Do you guys have like a shared standard you want to agree on?
Yes.
My guess is Nadir, like one of the challenges, John might think, well, you might not accept the Bible if the Quran thinks the Bible is corrupted. So like I don't want to tell you guys what standard you have to use. That's up to you guys, but uh it sounds like John might have been saying, let me try to appeal to a broader standard because not everybody believes the Bible.
I think the standard that I gave in my opening is something that we could both agree on. It's the harm principle, right? Can we both agree to this statement? One ought not harm an innocent person.
Right, sure. Yeah,
Great.
definitely. Well, take your 2
Great.
minutes and I'll respond. Go ahead.
Great. So we have the same standard of morality, but you're saying I have to pull from the Bible, even though our same standard is one ought not harm an innocent person. Now, this is a tu quoque fallacy. It's a fallacious thing of whataboutism, where it's like, hey, if you're going to judge us for doing it, what about those guys over there? They also do it. It's to escape the actual topic. Now, I'll address this really quick, but I'm not going to focus on Numbers 31, right? If you read Numbers 31:16, it says, look at these women who caused the sons of Israel to go to the council of Balaam. If you read earlier in Numbers, the issue was those women, the older women, were sleeping with them and causing them to sin. So they'd already have a notion of who were the virgins. Never mentions sex, never mentions marriage, just mentions taking them as slave. Common practice back then is you would unalive all the men and the boys. Whether that's good or not, again, is a different debate topic. They would normally take all the women as slaves, but because the older women led them into temptation, they were to be put to death. That is what actually happens in that. But again, that's a tu quoque fallacy. We already have an agreement of morality. It's what we ought to do. One ought not harm an innocent person. My opponent has already agreed that without Allah's divine intervention, this event would have harmed Aisha. So it's something he should not have done. So for him to make his argument, he needs to present a convincing case that Aisha was actually protected by Allah. If not, I could look at all the case studies around the world and say the vast majority of people were not protected by Allah when having sex. So I could say that it's a high probability that she wasn't. So Muhammad ought not do it. That's it.
Okay, so it sounds like, Nadir, I do understand where John's coming from. If John's thinking these aren't comparable, and you're like, yes, they are, let me show you. And it's like, well, then it does become a debate that's off topic because it's going into the depth of like the ethics arguments for these cases in the Old Testament. And so if you wanted to do something like a comparative Old Testament ethics versus
can I
Quran,
answer that? I can answer him.
We'd have to talk about it beforehand, so like, because otherwise it gets bogged down on debating the Old Testament verses.
No, let me. He's having some confusion. I'm gonna clear up the confusion very quickly here. If I am debating a secular humanist and I bring up the Bible, Numbers 31:17, look, it's okay based on this. That is, of course, ridiculous reason because a secular humanist is going to be like, I don't care about that book. Or if I say, look, your book teaches it also, therefore
But
it is
are you just to be
fine.
clear, like, are
But
you addressing what I just said? Like, you guys don't
yeah,
agree on the Old Testament passages. You don't agree in terms of their
but
meaning. So, like, if you're going to
yeah,
jump into a debate on interpreting these and the ethics of it, it's like it
yeah.
does kind of go off the topic of what we
What
expected. Now,
we
if
can
you
agree.
wanted to schedule one,
it becomes a debate of context
if you wanted to
because you and I
schedule
disagree on
one,
the context.
if you want to schedule
What we
one on
can
the Old
agree.
Testament,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
okay. But it's just that it's getting bogged down if you guys are debating the interpretation of the Old Testament ethics cases.
No, what we can all agree on, okay, is what my expectation was. He should have came in tonight's debate from a Christian perspective, which he didn't. He came in with
I
from a
did.
humanist perspective. But what we can agree, and we can move on from here, we can agree that if we just looked at the Bible, whether you believe in it or not, whether you believe it's corrupt or not, we can believe there's no conflict on the age of the marriage of Aisha
Okay.
with that
Okay.
book.
Watch this.
So we
Watch
can
this.
now move on and we could take the Bible and push it aside now because we know there's no
Okay.
conflict there. Okay. So let's put the Bible aside. I was just trying to prove that according to the Bible, the marriage of Aisha is perfectly valid. So now we can go to Islamic morality. Islamic morality, we have agreed today that there's no conflict in there. So let's push the Islamic morality aside. So now let's go to secular humanism and let's look at this. So now he's saying, okay, yes, if you have to first prove that Muhammad was a true prophet, then your argument would be valid. I
No, that
accept
still
that.
wouldn't make it valid.
Okay. No, look, hold on a second. No, because if I could prove Muhammad is a true prophet, then that means it is in fact God who is miraculously intervening and providing whatever kind of support, help needed to make sure Aisha never gets harmed or in any way. So
Can I
the
ask an
issue.
important
Hold on a
question?
second. Let me finish my 2 minutes. You see, the thing is this: I have no
Oh yeah.
problem providing that evidence. We can definitely debate that at another time. The scientific, prophetic, and archaeological evidence for Islam. But the question here is, which I pose to you: look, people are innocent until proven guilty. We have no evidence of Aisha being harmed. Okay, Muhammad is innocent until proven guilty. You need to show us real evidence that she was harmed, and then you could have a good argument here. Go ahead, John. Can you show me that evidence?
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question? I know we're doing the 2 minute thing. Do you hold to the fact then that nobody, because if Aisha was specifically protected, do you hold to the fact that nobody now should marry a 9-year-old?
That's correct, because Islam actually discourages people from marrying children. That is correct.
Okay, so nobody in all the world, Muslim countries or not, should marry anybody under the age of 18.
That is, well, there's no age limit. There's no age limit in secular humanism. There's no age limit anywhere. So Islam doesn't come with an age limit, but Islam does steer people away
A
from
rough
child
estimate
marriage.
of like where? Like where would it be rough?
I'm sorry, what's your question?
Just a rough estimate where you think is like a good age for marriage.
Okay, so in terms of what I believe is a good age, it's going to be right around 20 to 25,
And you
based
think that's
on the
a
hadith of
wide?
the Prophet of Islam. Would you
That's
like me to show
based.
you that?
No, like, listen, dude, I'm not going to argue against you. If you're going to say that, hey, you got to be over 21 to get married, thumbs up, Nadir. W's in the chat for that.
All right,
100%. That's
good.
dope. Now, why is Muhammad the exception then?
Because Muhammad is the exception in the Quran. Look, the Quran said for people that we should only you can marry up to 4 wives, but the Prophet of Islam had 9 wives. Now, why did God make him an exception on many of these issues? We don't know. We don't know. That is from God's will and plan.
So, out of all of history, all child marriage for the most part is wrong, but Muhammad picked Aisha out specifically and said, hey, Muhammad, you're going to put your junk in that child, but I'm going to protect her.
Well, see, the thing is, this whole thing about putting your junk in this child, what you're doing, you're trying to capture a shock effect here. You're trying to salvage this debate any way you
How do
can
you
at
have
this point.
sex?
Okay. There's no point. As I told you, those tactics are not going to work here. I'm going to call it out. Okay. That in no way, the issue is this, that look, child marriages, of course, existed all throughout history. I cannot say that those marriages were wrong or that the girls got harmed or anything like that. No, I'm not going to say that. But what I will
All the
say,
data says that.
well, I don't know anything about the other child marriages in history. But
I,
what I
I
will
actually
say,
I actually have I have data that goes back to the first
okay,
century
that's fine.
that talks about the complications of early marriage. That when young women, right, would get impregnated in this 10 to 12 range, they'd have huge complications that would lead to harms to the children, harms to themselves, that they would have a whole bunch of issues in their own physical body, and a lot of times their children would die. So like we have data from now all the way to the past that says this was never really a good thing for the parent.
Yes.
Now you're arguing that specifically for Aisha, she was just set apart. And you say it's grotesque, but that's true. That's how you have sex. So you have to say that Allah said to Muhammad, you're going to pick this one little child out. You're going to take her from her home and you're going to put your junk in that child.
Okay. Well, this junk stuff is not going to work. It's your argument which is junk. As I have pointed out, that Aisha was physically different. So therefore, your argument has been defeated right there. As I've pointed out, a little child, just think about this. How is it possible? Little children, I have 2 daughters, the last thing they're thinking about is preserving hadith with its laser-like accuracy. Okay, working as a historian, scholar, and gospel writer, a child doesn't think like that. So I have proved
how do you
that
know she was physically different?
But I did point out one physical difference, you see?
Yeah.
So now the question now comes to
what's the physical difference?
What it comes down to now is, how do we know that Muhammad is a true prophet or not? Because if Muhammad is a false prophet,
what is the physical difference? You said you pointed out. I forgot.
Let me finish.
I just want you to answer
that. If Muhammad is a false prophet, then the marriage of Aisha was immoral. But if Muhammad is a true prophet, then the marriage of Aisha is perfectly fine, as it has divine protection over it. And also, and you did not actually answer my
was it that
challenge.
she was physically different, or was it that she had divine protection?
She was physically different.
So she was physically different and she had divine protection.
Correct.
Okay, so how do we know she's physically different?
I have pointed out to you that she narrated 2,000 hadith between 9 and when she lived with the Prophet.
That's just memory recall.
Please stop interrupting me. Look, that is not memory recall, okay? There is nobody who can memorize with laser-like accuracy 2,000 hadith from her time when she was 9 to 18 with the Prophet. If so, show me where this is happening. Show me where anybody is able to do this. It is.
But again, this all happened after the age of 18.
Show me the exact. So when you said, "Oh, this is just normal, anybody can do that," show
but
it
she
to
didn't.
me,
She didn't
John.
do that at 9 years old. She did that after the age of 18 when she started recording all the documents. Is when
she's recalling. That even makes it. That strengthens my argument, because what she's doing, she's remembering.
Well, you wanted 2 minutes and 2 minutes. You wanted 2 minutes and 2 minutes.
Okay, let's do 2 minutes back and forth, because this is
We don't have to do 2 minutes and 2 minutes back and forth. We just let each other speak, right?
Why don't you do your 2 minutes?
I let you speak.
And then I'll come back and respond to you. Go ahead, do your 2 minutes.
The big thing is that you were saying that she was physically different, but I have hadith that shows that she didn't even hit puberty, right? We have hadith where it says in Sahih Muslim 1422c, Aisha reported Allah's apostle married her when she was 7 years old, and she was taken to her house as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her. And when the Holy Prophet died, she was 18 years old. So she has her dolls with her. But then it says in Sahih Bukhari, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. When Allah's messenger used to enter my dwelling place, they used to hide themselves, but the Prophet would call them to join and play with me. The playing of dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it's allowed for Aisha at the time, as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. So her having the dolls shows that she wasn't of age. So this idea that she was built different doesn't make any sense. And again, just saying that, oh, God protected her is a cop-out. You have no evidence for that.
Okay, so let me answer some of that. First of all, these are your false assumptions you're imposing upon the text. That is because Christianity is a fake religion. Fake, F-A-I-C. False assumption of the ignorant, credulous person. Just because somebody plays with dolls has no bearing upon whether they hit puberty or not. All the scholars, actually, academic scholars and Islamic historians, agree that Aisha was at the age of puberty. There is no evidence to suggest that she did not hit puberty. So these are all your false assumptions that you are imposing upon the text here.
This is just an appeal
once again,
to authority.
your attempt, so what you're doing, this is a desperate attempt to try to salvage the debate. You
you're
see
not,
that, see, as a
Nadir,
Christian, please
you're
stop
not
interrupting
addressing
me.
the hadith.
Again, this is
You're
my
not
2 minutes,
addressing the
John.
hadith.
John,
Can we get
if
past this?
there is
Because
any,
you're doing.
please, this is
I
my
Okay.
2 minutes.
wanna
James,
I'll keep an eye out just to see
yeah,
if Nadir's on topic.
yeah.
Nadir, you got
I
about a
am
minute and 15 left.
Okay, yeah.
This is a bit of a
I'm
gish gallop,
addressing,
though.
please, I'm addressing your argument here. I'm saying this is an act of desperation, yet once again, to try to show that Aisha was not at the age that she was prepubescent. There is no evidence to suggest that. If there is, share your desktop and show me the reference where it says she was prepubescent. There is nothing like that. Okay, these are all false assumptions. But also, again, you didn't answer my question. One of the challenges I presented to you tonight is how can you look at a young girl, like a 6-year-old girl, and know that she had this amazing ability, this hadith ability of preserving hadith 2000 hadith, and she played the central role in basically writing the gospel of Muhammad. You cannot
When she was
determine that.
18.
You cannot look at a 6-year-old child and know that that this child has this ability. So that's my challenge for you. I would like for you to answer this because the only
Okay.
sensible explanation is that this is God ordained, just like the hadith said.
I'm gonna
Okay.
switch it into, instead of 2-minute responses, 1-minute responses to keep things moving faster.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So you didn't really address my argument. You just made like an appeal to authority. You said, "Hey, all the scholars say," and didn't cite any of them. There's a simple like inference rule here. We can do like a modus ponens, where it basically says, "Hey, if you're not allowed to play with dolls when you're older." Aisha was allowed to play with dolls. Sorry, modus tollens. Therefore, she wasn't older, right? So that's the logical conclusion there. That's what the hadith say. You say I keep not addressing the question about her being able to memorize things. Well, she wrote these things down when she was 18 years old. There's a presupposition there that she just got it all perfectly. How do we know she got it all perfectly? Maybe she made like hundreds of mistakes based off her memory. You have no way of knowing because the only documentation you have is hers. So again, she wrote things really well when she was an adult. Congratulations. What does that have to do with Muhammad, again, taking his junk out and sticking it in this child? Now you say it's gross, but that is the case. That is how sex happens. And you're saying she's a unique, special case that God, once again, ordained and protected her. How do you know? How do you know God ordained and protected her? For all intents and purposes, unless God did that, it was harm. So you actually have a burden here.
Okay, that's
You have
fine.
to
1
show
minute.
me that God did that.
And
You have to show me God
Okay.
protected her. If not, it was harmful.
It was not an appeal to authority. It was a direct challenge for you. Show me evidence that Aisha was prepubescent, which you did not do, because there is no such thing. You tried to pull another fake, FAIC, false assumption of the ignorant, credulous person. Well, she played with dolls, therefore she's prepubescent. That is nonsense. No need to respond to your fake arguments. You said that she made. How do you know that she didn't? When we talked about her miraculous ability, you said, "How do you know that she didn't make mistakes?" You have shot yourself in the foot tonight. Because the basis of your argument was that Aisha was 9, that's narrating from her own hadith, which you have just basically blown out of the water. You're telling us today, well, how do I know there's no mistakes in my source? That tells me Aisha was 9. Okay, the debate is over. You see, so the problem is, you have no argument at this point to show that the marriage
And
was immoral.
time.
James, instead of doing like 1 minute speeches, can we do like 1 minute cross exams where I can interrogate his position?
No,
He has to answer my
continue as
questions.
we are. I think we're doing good. That's not going to help you. You're going to lose tonight bad. All of what you're trying to do is not
So
going to
I-
help you.
Okay.
All right.
Nadir, to be fair, we did switch it into the 2-minute segments when you asked for it, Nadir. So I do want to grant this just because we humored your request for 2 minutes. We'll give John a chance for we'll do 2 minutes where John gets to interrogate Nadir, and then 2 minutes Nadir you get to interrogate John.
Okay, that's fine.
Right. Okay. Does Sa Al Bakari 6130 say that you are not allowed to play with dolls? It's prohibited.
Yeah, for adults, it's prohibited. Yes.
Okay. Was Aisha allowed to play with dolls?
Yes.
Okay. So if it's prohibited for adults and she's allowed to play with dolls, what is the conclusion there?
Well, actually, to be very honest with you, there's a difference of opinion on whether even children are allowed to play with dolls. Many Salafi scholars say no. Even for children, they should not play with dolls. So there's a difference of opinion, but none of this will actually determine if the girl has puberty or not. This is not a puberty test to see if
you're going on a
so,
speech. You're supposed to be
okay.
answering my question.
Okay,
So it's
no,
very
no,
direct, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just
go ahead.
if we're taking these two hadith without the scholarship, right? We're not looking at Ibn Kathir. We're not looking at that. If I look at these two hadith, does it say that she did not hit puberty just in isolation?
No, it doesn't. This is ridiculous to try to do a puberty test based on dolls. This is pseudoscience. So this is that pseudoscientific quackology you're giving us here.
Do you know what like a modus tollens inference rule is?
No, I mean, why don't you go to some scientific references to determine what determines puberty? Why are you giving us these quackological arguments?
So we have Hadith 1 that says that she had dolls.
Okay.
We have Hadith 2 that says that it's not allowed for somebody past the age of puberty to play with dolls. The logical conclusion here
there's no
is that
hadith
she was
like
not
that.
past the age of puberty.
Can you show us that? There's no hadith like that.
You already agreed with me. You conceded that Sahih al-Bukhari 6130 says the playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it's allowed for Aisha at the time as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. He even clarifies that she was allowed to play with dolls because she had not yet hit the age of puberty. So do you agree with the hadith? Was she allowed to play with dolls?
I'm not aware of any hadith which says once a person hits puberty, you can't play with dolls.
And that's 2 minutes. Nadir will give you a chance to interrogate John for 2 minutes.
Okay. So as I was pointing out, the issue of how could you look at a 6-year-old child and know she will have this remarkable ability? There is no other way I know other than something coming from something supernatural. Or do you know of a natural way? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's just natural phenomena that she was just of an older age and she just learned how to write and record things. People have done this all throughout history.
But not at 6 years. At 6 years old? What are you talking about?
She didn't record it at 6 years old. She recorded at 18. You already conceded that.
Let me correct you. The decision to marry Aisha was done at 6, consummated at 9. Again, I repeat my question. How could you look at a 6-year-old girl and know that she has this miraculous ability?
Is she writing it at 9?
I'm going to repeat again. At 6 years old, it was determined that she was married, to marry the Prophet of Islam. How can a person look at a child and know she has this amazing ability?
So that's a loaded question because your question is, how do we know she has this amazing ability? So that's loaded right off the bat. But again, is your argument that she remembered Muhammad having sex with her when she was 9 years old? And that's miraculous?
No, she narrated 2,000 hadith with laser-like precision, and she was starting narrating from 9 to 18. If you were to ask me to talk to me about your mom or your dad or something like that, I would probably maybe narrate at the most maybe 20 to 30, but not with any kind of laser-like precision like Aisha did. So that is something astonishingly amazing that a human being can do this.
So again, it's just a loaded question. You're saying she's doing it with laser-like precision.
As I pointed out inside my opening, man-made religion equals man-made written scriptures. All scriptures are written by men: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Genesis. I mean, women have played a very, very small role of writing some hymns, some songs. How do you explain Aisha's role as a woman in scripture writing?
If you want to respond, John, you can. But otherwise, if you want to take over for your 2-minute interrogation of Nadir, you can.
Okay. So now you're saying that if God had not protected her, right, the harm would have happened. What actual evidence do you have of God protecting her?
Okay. The evidence which we have that God actually protected her, it goes to the scientific, prophetic, and archaeological evidence proving that Islam is true and that this truly is a religion from God. Now, I debated that.
Let me finish. It's my turn to interrogate.
You didn't let me finish.
I'm allowed to interrupt. Because it's my turn to interrogate.
Would you like to debate that with me, John?
It's my turn to interrogate, so I'm allowed to interrupt. Yeah. So even if Islam was true, it's still not the case that he protected her. You need some sort of data that says he protected her. What data do you have?
By using logic, people are innocent until proven guilty. When you accuse somebody of a crime that you harmed a child, and that there was
innocent until proven guilty.
Allow me to.
No, I got you. Listen, I'm allowed to interrupt in this point.
Okay.
Right. So they're innocent until proven guilty. So does that mean I should assume that every single man nowadays that sleeps with a child did not harm the child until I have evidence that God did not protect that child?
If there was a claim of divine, appointment, and that this is something which are saying God has, ordained,
Okay.
then yes, now you got to pull back.
Okay.
You got to say, wait a second, let's
Okay.
examine.
So then if every pedophile nowadays just starts raping children and says God ordained it and protect the child, we would need to seek out evidence then, and we would just assume that they were innocent.
Yeah, there is no, in those cases, nobody is a true prophet. Everybody is a false prophet by default. But the case with Prophet Muhammad is different, that he actually has presented solid evidence to prove his prophethood. So that's why Muhammad is the exception to the case of prophetic, archaeological, and scientific evidence, which I will invite you to debate me on, and we could do it right here in modern day.
We'll give it to Nadir for 2 minutes to interrogate.
Yeah. So going back to the point here, all these scriptures are written by men. Yet what is so astonishingly unusual is we find a woman, which are impure women, as a role as some kind of gospel writer in Islam, narrating thousands and thousands of hadiths, which is being trusted by all these people around the world. And she's a woman. How do you explain this shocking, atypical behavior?
What's the question?
Religious scriptures are written by men. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It goes on. Women play little to no role in this. Maybe writing a hymn. But yet with Islam, we find something different. That there's actually a woman who is like the author of all this big bulk of scripture, which we find in the Hadith. This is not the role of women in that ancient times. What is a woman doing here?
That's not a question.
I just asked you, is this typical or atypical?
For women to be mentioned?
No, I didn't say mention. I said to play the role of a gospel writer.
To play a role? Yeah, it's typical. As a gospel writer, like as an author?
Yes.
It depends on what period of time we're talking about.
7th century.
I have no idea. I haven't looked at the authors of the 7th century.
Okay, let me educate you. Scripture is, and when we talk about religion, authority and scholarship, it's all man-dominated. Okay, and if you look and so this is yet another evidence. See, now we find out that man-made religion equal man-made scripture. That's the formula. But Islam is atypical in this response, in this particular respect. Then, would you agree?
What's the? It just seems like you're making statements and then saying, "Do I agree with them?" What's the question here?
Well, I said, is this something atypical?
I'll give him more time because he didn't get his question across. If he wants it,
no, that's okay. It's very obvious you don't have an answer.
I do. But it is one thing that I do want to be sure that you're not using the interrogation time to kind of just push information and then just say, "Do you agree?" So just to keep an eye on it. But go ahead, John.
Okay.
So are you basically saying because she ended up being a great author when she was 18 years old, that justifies Muhammad again using his junk to enter her?
No, that's the false assumption of the ignorant, credulous person. You just had to pull a fake.
Okay,
I never said that was a justification. Therefore, it's right. You see,
okay,
so
then it doesn't logically follow that just because she's a great author when she turned 18, that Muhammad's marriage is moral to her, right?
No, of course, nobody is arguing that. But what I'm showing you, the reason why I raise that is because that is that.
Okay, so then you just conceded it's irrelevant. You just said no.
Interrupted me. I'm showing you.
You said it doesn't logically follow that makes the marriage moral. You just said that.
No, you're not letting me talk. So if you're going to talk over me, why it is relevant to this issue, because that strengthens the argument of the hadith where it showed that the marriage of Aisha was divinely appointed. So now we have solid
your
argument.
Hold on. Your argument then is because she's a good historian that God made her do it?
No, that's pretty stupid. That's just another fake you're pulling here. What I have explained it. You see, the problem is, John, you're just
okay. So what exactly is the divine miracle that happened?
Okay,
Very specifically,
you
no
asked
speeches.
Me one question. Let me answer
in 5 words or less. What's the miracle?
The miracle is that this was a child which was picked out at age 6 who had an amazing ability that no other child
What's
or
the
anybody has
ability?
had. Okay, that she was able to narrate 2,000 hadith.
At what age did she
with
narrate these hadiths?
at the age of past, it was actually through between 9 and through 60, basically 9 and 60. She
I have
narrated
no data that says she was narrating these hadiths
Okay.
between 9 and 18.
Okay, well, okay, okay, so this is a little bit complicated. She would narrate after the death of the Prophet of Islam and recall from memory with laser-like precision 2,000.
How do you know it was laser-like precision?
Okay, because that is the standard of the Hadith scholars' demand. So if we go back to the study of Hadith, but even if it wasn't laser-like
Well,
precision,
tell me what it
that's
is. What is the laser-like
2,000.
precision?
Hold on a second. Nobody,
Yeah, we're
no
at
human
time.
being on earth can recall from 9 to 18, 2,000 narrations, whether it's laser light or whatever. No human being can do that. This is something absolutely amazing.
We'll kick it over to Nadir, and we're pretty close to going into the Q&A. Go ahead, Nadir. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah. So, I've also pointed out that Islam, just coming tonight to debate such a sensitive topic, like on Aisha, I showed that Islam, this really demonstrates the hit of Islam: honesty, integrity, and transparency. Would you agree that I have fulfilled the HIT?
No.
Okay. Well, then, do you know of other religion? Let me ask you: do you in your religion, do you guys debate the sensitive topics like what we are doing here?
Yes.
Where is the debate on the Bible, the Quran, and modern science? Show me that debate.
I don't know.
It doesn't exist. Last time it happened was 1996, and Christians have been doing taqiyya, which is deception, until today. Where's the topic? The Bible, the Quran, and slavery. Where is that topic?
That's happened lots of times. Josh Bowman's
Never.
had several debates with that. So Trent Horton
Never.
and Josh Bowman had a debate on that.
No, the Bible, the Quran, and slavery. You're not understanding.
Oh, the Bible, Quran, and slavery. Okay, yeah, no, I don't know any of those.
Okay, yeah. Where is the debate? Is Paul a demon-possessed prophet?
Do you want to have it?
It doesn't exist. That's what I'm trying to show you. I'm trying to show you that the Christians, they do not have the HIT. They run away from the hard topics that destroy the religion. The only religion which has the hit, honesty, integrity, and transparency is the religion of Islam. That is very clear. And you could look here on modern day debate. I've been leading the debate on this topic itself on the marriage of Aisha. This was my idea. Why? Because that shows the honesty and integrity and transparency of Islam. And this is something Christians don't have. They run away from the scientific errors of their Bible, like the virginity test. That's a scientific error. There's no such thing.
Okay. Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was asking James. I didn't know. I was getting
Yeah, I
excited.
think we
I
have
didn't want to
enough
jump
time.
over.
We can give each of you 2 minutes to interrogate the other. But I think we started with you, John, interrogating Nadir. So we'll go with you, and then we'll give Nadir a chance to interrogate, and that way you guys got equal amounts to interrogate, and then we'll go to the Q&A.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back to my first question. Two worlds, all things are exactly the same. Is it better or worse for Aisha to have sex with Muhammad at 9 years old? Removing ideas of protection or not? Which one's better or worse?
Yeah. It's a stupid question, and it doesn't deserve an answer. As I have already shown you.
So you're not going to answer. So I'm just going to ask again. Is it better
stupid.
or worse
I don't
for
know.
Muhammad
There's
to have
no
sex
way
with Aisha at 9?
It is okay. I'm sorry. I could answer. It's better. Why? Because it was God ordained. God will protect whatever any issues that arise. So I'm sorry. I should have answered. Yes, it's better. Go ahead.
It's better because God said so. So divine command theory. Prove to me that God protected her.
That I can prove it to you that this is a religion from God. If you would like, we could have a debate on the topic.
Okay. Does it logically follow? Does it necessarily mean that even if Islam is a religion of God, that God protected Aisha? Is that a necessity?
Well, God would have done whatever, because God would have made this marriage moral to make sure that there's no harm.
Are you assuming God's motives?
Well, we look through the hadith, we don't find any harm to Aisha. Actually,
are you assuming God's motives?
Yes, because God is good, God is moral, God is a loving God, and we go and I can look to
Okay,
the
but this same
I can look
God,
to the hadith, we see
the
no
same
harm.
God, hold on. The same
Yeah.
God in the Quran says that you can marry children and doesn't even allow for puberty. That's in the Quran. So this same God, why would I assume that he
Yeah.
protected Aisha?
Okay, because that's you just pulled another fake. That's your false assumption of the ignorant, credulous person. Because see, the difference is this: Christianity is a fake religion. Islam is a fact-based religion. Everything I have given you tonight is based upon facts. You have been pulling fakes tonight. So there's no
Okay,
such
you're not
thing as
answering
like
the
that in the
question.
Quran.
The Quran
There is
itself
no such
in verse
teaching in the Quran.
65 says, for even those who have not yet menstruated,
Okay.
their waiting period is 3 months.
Yeah.
Earlier in chapter 30, it says that if you have not had sex with them, there is no waiting period. The logic entailment here is those who have not yet menstruated have had sex with them. If those, are you saying that all those women were also protected?
Okay, so what I'm telling you here is that you are making false assumptions upon the text. Nowhere does that text say, allow me to finish.
Is
John,
every woman that
please
has
allow me to
sex with a
finish.
Muslim man
Okay,
protected?
you didn't even let me finish.
Is
Okay,
every
first of all,
child woman
uh, uh,
who has
J- uh,
sex with a Muslim man
John,
protected?
allow me to finish. Okay,
You gotta actually
yeah,
address my questions. You can't just
I am
steamroll.
addressing
You're
it. Okay,
steamrolling over. So
okay,
let me
James,
ask my
can you
question.
I
please
I'm
do.
step in
allowed to
over here?
interrupt you.
He's not letting me
Uh,
answer even.
I'm
to
allowed to
to
interrupt you in this part.
to be
Yeah.
fair, Nadir, I think that he's also just worried that he's got only 2 minutes to interrogate you, so he wants you to kind of address it
Well,
as
you're
quickly
not
as
letting me
possible.
talk. You're not letting me
But
talk.
because you're trailing off on a different point, and I want you
No,
to
you
focus on the
asked me
point.
about a Quran verse. I'm going to first correct your misunderstanding of that verse. Okay, rather for you to build off of your
I
misunderstanding.
think,
The verse
I
which you
think,
quoted from the
um,
Quran,
so just to be clear, I think Nadir, you're saying like you don't agree that the question makes sense. Is that because I think he's thinking like if you agree it's a coherent question, like will you answer it? Otherwise, are you saying that in some way that it just somehow doesn't make sense?
no, what I'm saying is that he quoted a Quran verse, but he made a false assumption on what it means, and then he tried to build a case off of that. So I want to go back to the Quran verse,
But but
show him
regarding
where he
his
made his
question,
error.
but I
That's
know,
what I
but
would like to do.
like I
So
know,
the
but I'm
Quran
just
verse,
saying,
yeah.
but again, like saying, I think he's concerned, like if you think his question's like coherent, like that it makes sense, like why you're not
It
answering it? Like
it
why
doesn't
aren't
make
you?
sense. That's what I'm trying to point out. It doesn't make sense.
Okay,
If I can talk, I'll just give me 1 minute. I'll clarify everything.
I'll give you
So I listen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, James.
I can give you a really quick response, Nadir, in terms of like why the question you don't think it makes sense, and
Okay.
then we got to go to
Be-
your interrogation of John before you go to
sure.
Q&A.
Because the Quran verse, which he quoted, only talks about what you should do when you come across such a situation. If there are girls who are prepubescent, here's what you do. It doesn't say it's okay, go ahead and marry a prepubescent girl. That's his false assumption of the ignorant.
All right, we'll give you a chance to interrogate John. This is final interrogation, 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to give you one last opportunity to try to salvage this debate and show me where exactly and make it how is the marriage of Aisha immoral based upon whether it be secular, Islamic, or Christian standard of morality or atheist standard of morality. Go ahead.
Yeah, you already conceded that it would be immoral if God didn't intervene to do it. We have no evidence that God intervened. Just using basic inductive, deductive reasoning, we
Okay.
can conclude that she was most likely harmed in these situations. So therefore, that's the position you should take until you're given
Okay.
evidence to believe otherwise.
Okay, so we can agree it is hypothetical. If Islam is not true and if Islam is not what it claims to be, then we can safely assume that this was an immoral marriage or immoral marriage. And I am actually perfectly fine with that. But once we throw in the factor, hey, wait a second, this is a God involved, and let's look at the evidences, then that changes the dynamics here. So can we just agree that whether this is an immoral marriage, it's based upon a hypothetical?
No, right? I don't think it necessitates whether or not Islam is true. Islam can be true, and that could still be immoral. You can take an evil God hypothesis.
No, that's a logical contradiction. If Islam is true, then there's no evil God, there's a good God. Okay, so look, the issue here, you are basically saying, look, we cannot determine whether this marriage was immoral because it kind of factors on the question of whether Muhammad was a true prophet worshiping a true God. If we can just conclude on this, then we can go to the Q&A.
Yeah, I don't conclude, right? Your whole argument is that Islam's
Okay.
true, so therefore it's good. That's a silly argument.
We just said I just told you it's based upon a hypothetical. We can agree that look, if Islam is false, then yes, the marriage is immoral. But if Islam is true, then that changes
I
everything.
can answer it. I can answer it simply. If God had to protect her, therefore it's immoral.
What the heck? If God had to protect her, no, that doesn't make any sense. The harm
Then why is he
theory.
protecting her?
Wait a second. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What you're doing, see, John, you're desperate. You're trying to pull a win at the very last second. It's not going to work. Look, the harm
This is
principle is this,
actually the
that
end of
if the
the
marriage causes harm,
interrogation.
then it's immoral. But if God is protecting
This
her
is
from
when
the
you're supposed
harm,
to be
then
asking
there's nothing
questions.
immoral.
We'll jump into the Q&A, folks. Thank you very much for your questions. We're going to try to move through these as fast as possible. We've got a lot of questions. And so do want to remind you folks, we are looking for sincere questions. We are looking for questions that are not insults and questions that are on topic. With that, we're going to jump into this first one. First, if you haven't yet, hit that like button. We appreciate your support, folks. This one from Christ's Life says, Mr. Man, the Beast Man's a Mormon. Okay. Bubblegum Gun says, John, according to Proto-Evangelium, James chapter 9, verse 2, confirmed by early church fathers, Virgin Mary was 12 when she was impregnated by Jesus. Give you a chance to respond, John.
Okay. Yeah. So early church does say that she is 12, but let me just pull something up here. Where is it? Got a lot of notes. 1 second. Give me 2 seconds.
If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button as well, folks. Many more debates coming up.
Okay, I don't know what happened to my direct notes on it, but we have reason to believe that she was not. So, for example, in the Gospel of Luke, it says that she is a woman. It uses a very specific Greek word. And then we have in John, Jesus goes and talks about resurrecting the 12-year-old girl. And it says that she was a little girl, and it says that she was 12, and it uses a different Greek word. So we have a Greek word that's used for 12-year-olds. That same Greek word is not used for Mary when it's talking about her when she was impregnated.
Funky Mink says, Big John is a great debater. I would love to see more of him. Wow. This one from says, actually, religious asks, we're not afraid of any topic. Namely, he's quoting you, Nadir, as he uses whataboutism to run from the topic. Okay. So they disagree. The bearded doctor says, did Nadir use ChatGPT like he did last debate? Nadir.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can answer the ChatGPT issue. If you're talking about what I did in the last debate, I used ChatGPT to try to solve a problem, try to solve a solution. I didn't
They're
say,
asking
look,
if you did this time.
what?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
I just
the issue here of if I can just answer the ChatGPT thing, I said, look, don't just. I specifically and explicitly said, don't just go with what ChatGPT says. I said that so many times. I said, okay, this ChatGPT couldn't solve this problem. My opponent, go ahead and give it a shot. So if you use it in a responsible way, that's wonderful. But I think what's happening here is the AI is refuting the arguments of Christianity, Hinduism.
Nadir, this is why people get. I'm not trying to
And
be
therefore they're
rude.
trying to heckle it out.
This is why they're like you never answer the question. They're asking about it this debate. Did you use ChatGPT?
Yeah, no.
No, I mean
I didn't use any ChatGPT today.
you can always lead with no, say, no, I didn't this time. And by the way, last time it was justified because of XYZ. When you
Okay.
save the answer to the question for last, it's like that's what makes people think where they're like, come on, are you avoiding the question? But I'm glad you did not use it this time.
Okay.
What's up, John?
I just wanted to clarify to answer that last question. The verses were Luke 1, right, where he uses that specific Greek word, and then we see Jesus calling the little girl and saying she was 12 was in Mark 5. I just wanted to clarify that. That's it.
This one from, do appreciate your question. Empty Box says, I wonder if Nadir, let's see, would let us marry his child. Okay. I think
I
they're
can answer
saying,
that.
like, do you believe in Muslims being able to marry a non-Muslim?
Well, if it's talking about a woman, marrying a non-Muslim woman, then no. Men are under certain conditions are allowed to marry women who are like Jews or Christians and believe in God. So, yeah.
Thanks for humoring that. And by the way, Nadir, because technically that wasn't really on topic. If you want to, you can always say not on topic, maybe next time,
Mhm.
and nobody will blame you because I do want to keep. I did tell people that earlier in the debate. Funky Mink says so. Wow, this is actually exactly how I predicted it would be. Nadir is about to get reamed. I think that's some sort
Mhm.
of word the young people are using nowadays. Ty the
Yeah.
Fly Guy one says, why would they check for virginity of little girls? The people the Israelites fought weren't Muslim, Nadir.
Well, I'm just going by what the text says. I could share my screen and show you the verse. The text literally said that the girls who are the virgins, you can keep them for yourselves. So to determine if somebody is a virgin, first of all, it's a scientific error in the Bible. There's no way to accurately determine the virginity of a woman, of a girl. So that is crazy right there. But the way it's done is by forcing a vaginal examination upon them. So the issue in tonight's debate is, look, Big John over here, he refused to take on the role to judge Islam by the criteria of the Bible for obvious reasons, as we see. So if you can force a vaginal examination on a girl, then the marriage of Aisha should be okay. So, but rather he tried to be a poser tonight and try to play as a secular humanist, which is a big joke of this debate.
This one from, do appreciate your question. Josh Lawrence says Aisha is Supergirl. Got it. I don't remember how
She
that
is.
pertains. Empty Box says Esther in all caps. But I can't remember the context. You guys know what the context would be? Bubblegum Gun says, written on our hearts equals our subjective opinion then. And they say, this is for you, John.
Yep. No, it wouldn't be your subjective opinion, right? It's that mere Christianity, that C.S. Lewis viewpoint, that we all have this intuition of what is morally good and what is morally wrong. But then we have to wrestle with that when we wrestle with our flesh, when we wrestle with our spirit, when we wrestle with the Holy Spirit. And then we can use the lens of Scripture to better understand those morals that are written on us. It says in the Scripture that Paul says in the Scripture, the Gentiles who do not have the law unto themselves with their own conscience bearing witness against them. There's many times throughout Scripture that says the law is written on our hearts. It says in, I think it's Ezekiel, where it says, there will come a day where you'll no longer say to your brother, come know thy Lord, for it will be written on your heart. The whole purpose of the Holy Spirit is that the Holy Spirit will guide us into truth and what is right and what is good. And so from the Christian viewpoint, there was always like two books. There was the book of Scripture and there was the book of nature. And those work in tandem with each other. They do not oppose each other. So we look at the world, we know from Scripture that we ought not harm innocent persons. We could see through the world and through science that sleeping with a child harms an innocent person. So the logical conclusion there is you ought not sleep with a child.
This one from, do appreciate it. Funky Mink says, I see you at the next Olympics, Nadir. You're a gold tier runner.
No, I'm not a runner. Look, this is a very sensitive topic. Aisha's marriage with Prophet Muhammad. Islam is the only religion, and this is a challenge for everybody in the chat. It's the only religion which has honesty, integrity, and total transparency on whatever topic. This is HIT. I have pointed out to you, look, I will prove to you that Islam is the only religion that does that. You, as a Christian, where is the debate? The Bible, the Quran, and modern science. It goes back to 1996. Christians have been running from that debate because they know there are scientific contradictions, like the virginity test, in their books. If you look here on modern day debate, there's only one person who is debating science and and Islam. It's me. Okay, so no, this is the taqiyya of Christianity. And the taqiyya we saw tonight was that this guy is pretending to be a secular humanist poser. He's a Christian. He should have came tonight from a Christian perspective. But as we see, the Quran, I mean, the age of Aisha is perfectly fine from a biblical perspective.
Follower of Ikshias says, question for Nadir. According to Sahih Muslim 1422c and others, Aisha was still playing with dolls when the marriage was consummated, which is not allowed after puberty, correct?
No, that is not correct. There is no way to determine if a girl really is in a state of puberty or not. This is all these wacky, quacky assumptions of these people. So I think what's happening here, they're just trying to find a way to salvage this debate, to try to show some way that this is immoral.
This one from, and by the way, John, if you want to give some rebuttals, we're going to try to give Nadir the last word because at least if the original question was for him. But I do,
Mhm.
just so you're not sitting there idle the whole time. No Cap Main says, Nadir, why does your number one source, Chat GPT, say Muhammad's marriage was immoral? Also, how's your dog Courage doing? You have a dog named Courage?
Okay, so I can answer that. So this is goes back to improperly using ChatGPT. Well, first of all, I've never seen that evidence to begin with. But like I said of you, I have pointed out three sources of morality in debate: Islamic, secular, and Christian. From all three, sources of morality, I showed that the marriage of Aisha was perfectly fine, especially from a Christian morality point of view. I don't know why the people in the chat and are seeing this as some kind of big win, that you ran away from the biblical source of morality and try to pose as if you're a secular humanist. That is embarrassing, and you should call it out for what it is. It's a fraud. If I'm a Muslim, I'm going to debate as a Muslim.
This one
Yeah,
coming in
if I can
from,
address that.
go ahead.
Yeah, obviously didn't use the Christian perspective. We both had the agreement of what morality is. One ought not harm innocent persons, and we started from there. What Nadir wanted to do is he wanted to run two verses in the scripture and argue the context, so he didn't actually have to argue the debate. I disagree with his context. I don't agree with his conclusion on Numbers 31. But if we get into that debate, then we're going to spend 90% of our time arguing about that rather than the substance of what we're supposed to be arguing about.
Yeah. Well, all you're in denial because there's embarrassing teachings in your book. Look, we can go to the actual, commentaries on the Bible, and the text is very clear. What is not clear to you that the virgin girls you keep for yourself, okay? There's no out of context thing here. And how do you determine virginity? Oh, well, you got to force a vaginal examination on these little girls. That is an inescapable conclusion.
We'll go to the next one. This one's from Monkey Funky Mink says, I cannot debate my own book's morality. I have to appeal to yours. They're quoting you. They're saying, Nadir, that this is what you say. They say you cannot defend your own book without bringing up something that Moses said, cope and seethe, Nadir.
Mhm. No, actually, I've brought up, I'm using it as a standard of morality. That's perfectly fine. You see, you're trying to turn this into some tu quo fallacy, and it's not. I'm saying based
Took
on
okay.
the, yeah, I'm trying to show. I've listed three standards of morality: Islamic, secular, and I listed also biblical. I went through each one and showed how it is perfectly moral from each point of view. In the Hadith, there is no record of Aisha being harmed in any way. Rather, this is just the false assumption of the ignorant, credulous people. That's the FAIC. That is because Christianity is a fake religion.
So
It
from,
seems that we're just
go
focusing
ahead.
on, sorry. Yeah, if we're just focusing on rhetoric, my rhetoric here would be like Islam can't actually make any arguments at all without talking about Christianity. It's literally the foundation of belief. I'd actually argue that if Christianity was like to cease to exist today and like you would have nothing, your religion would just crumble. Without Christianity, Islam's just gone.
This one from Keg Dog says, Surah 65:4 explains the proper practice of remarrying prepubescent girls after divorce from a consummated marriage. How does Nadir defend this?
Yeah, nowhere does that verse advocate or encourage anybody to marry a prepubescent girl. Rather, what the verse actually states is when you come across such a situation where somebody is married to a prepubescent girl, here's what you do. So, as I said, Christianity is a fake religion, FAIC. This is just another fake which they impose upon our text. Now, in tonight's debate, I was going to show you clear text which shows you how Islam discourages child marriage, whether they're prepubescent or anything like that. But we never got around to that, and so I guess that's all I have. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could respond to that, we have hadith where Muhammad literally encourages it. where he rebuked somebody for marrying a woman that was already older and already had intercourse. He says, "Why would you want to have that? You should get a young virgin to play with." So
from bought by
Virgin does not mean prepubescent. Look, virgin can also be in their 20s.
bought
Look at the
blood.
fake.
Bought by Blood 316 says, question, Nadir, is there a single hadith or Quranic verse that justifies Muhammad's actions, such as that he knew prior to the sexual act that God would protect Aisha from harm? If so, cite it.
Well, as I stated, if you look through the hadith, we don't have any record of Aisha suffering any harm. And as I said, from logic, people are innocent until proven guilty. Once the hadith made it very clear that this marriage of marrying Aisha was not Muhammad's idea. He didn't do it off of desire, but this is God ordained, and therefore God will protect this. Look, the issue here tonight, you got to apply the principle of charity here. Okay, you got to give the benefit of the doubt. So I think where this debate should now lead to is, how do we know Muhammad is a true prophet? And if John wants to debate me on that, we can definitely do that. So I'll leave it to you, John. Would you like to take that debate?
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah. So just remember, ladies and gentlemen, everybody listening in the chat, apply the principle of charity. When somebody grapes a child but says that God told him to do it, just remember, apply the principle of charity. Just assume he's innocent. Start on that principle. That's an excellent logical standard. We should all do that. Amen. Hallelujah. Islam is such a beautiful religion. All right, go ahead.
You're being bad again. Born again, double down. That was already refuted. Okay, as I said, nobody is a true prophet by default. They are false prophets. That's everybody. So I actually agree with you. If somebody comes with that type of claim, you should automatically reject it. But the difference with Islam is Islam comes, especially here on MDD, with scientific, prophetic, and archaeological evidence to back up that assertion that it is a true religion of God. And great, I think, John, you did say you would like to debate me on that, so James can go ahead and set that up.
This one from, do appreciate your question. Funky Mink says, Nadir, couldn't Momo be physically different, not Aisha?
Yeah, I think this is kind of irrelevant. He's mocking the name of Prophet Muhammad. But hey, I tell you what, look, the issue here, what I am seeing is that people are engaging in heckling and mocking because they cannot formulate a good argument to show that this was an immoral marriage.
Well, Buffett,
could one of the ways that Muhammad or Allah protected Aisha from being harmed is by giving Muhammad a really, really small penis so there was no damage?
I'm not even going to go there. Obviously, this is all heckling, mocking, and ridiculing. Hey, look, there's no need to respond to any of this.
Go to the next one from Whoa Buffett says, question, Nadir, did Allah protect Aisha? Okay, got that. RSSID says, Nadir, this is what Muslims do to protect Muhammad. I don't understand I don't know what this means. This one from, do appreciate your question. Anderson Roar says, Nadir, you cannot prove you're a prophet by writing your own book and saying God wants to marry a 6-year-old, then consummate at 9. This is evil.
Yeah, no. Here's how we prove the prophet of Islam. Oh, and by the way, which today atheists, agnostics here on MDD acknowledge and accept the Islamic evidence in that they accept that Prophet Muhammad, or I'm sorry, the Quran in Islam corrected 6 scientific errors of the Bible today. So that's how good our evidence is. Okay, I'm going to give you that clip, John, so you can prepare for our debate on this. So when we start talking, is there good evidence for Islam? Yes, because why would and these are people who don't like me very much, but yet they did concede that yes, the evidence is clear on that issue. So I know we got good evidence for that.
Yeah, the miracle claim's a weird one because all you have to do is say this. None of those miracles are confirmed until the 21st century. So nobody before the 21st century had any confirmation that Islam was true.
Well, John, you better first watch the debates, which I'm talking about, before you open your mouth. Okay? Because as I said, it is already, our argument is good enough where atheists, agnostics do acknowledge this, that there is some truth to what we are saying here. That's pretty good evidence.
Adam Bernard says, can Nadir stay on topic? If this topic was his idea, Aisha not, but the Bible not, but they also did it. And how in the does reading the plain text equal to false assumptions on the text?
You are not reading the plain text. You are making false assumptions that you're thinking when a verse in chapter 65 says, "Here's what happens when you come across a situation where you see somebody married to a prepubescent girl." You have made the false assumption that this is telling you to go ahead and marry prepubescent girls. Okay, that's a false assumption of the ignorant. Now, like I said, tonight I have plenty of evidence, and maybe I could show you that right now, to show you how Islam actually steers people away from child marriage. We never got to that point in tonight's debate, but if you want, I can show the evidence for that so that we can silence this canard once and for all.
So from John says,
Yeah, I
go
just
ahead.
say, sorry, James. Yeah, I just say that we have a lot of evidence that Muhammad was kind of like a sexual freak. It says that he would try to sleep with all of his wives in one night, that he was given the spirit of 30 men, that he encouraged people to take young virgins, that he implemented a law that straight up said that you can marry somebody temporarily if you're too horny. We have a whole bunch of hadiths where he had to clean the sperm from his clothing. It says that you could take concubines and bondswomen as slaves, and you can marry them, and you can do all these sorts of things. So I have no reason that I would ever assume that he'd be against child marriage when he's explicitly in the Quran giving rules on how to handle divorce with a child before puberty when you had sex with them. That's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just nothing but a shotgun blast of fake arguments, FAIC, because he's trying to pull out a last minute win. It's not going to happen, John. The debate is over, and there's no need to respond to all the nonsense of John said is all false and misleading information.
This one from John says, if you have hit, can you perform the first letter? Nadir, John W, no contest. What was the
The
first
on
letter?
Yeah, look, I've given many examples. I mean, look, the issue tonight, like for example, the issue of slave beating, to beat a slave. Where are all the debates on that from Christianity? Where are the debates? Is Paul a false prophet, a demon possessed prophet? It doesn't exist. The Bible, the Quran, and modern science, the Christians were defeated on that argument with Dr. Zakir Naik back in 1996. Since then, they have been running scared. There is no HIT there. The honesty and integrity and transparency of coming to tonight's debate to debate this sensitive topic, it's just by showing up. Show up and debate these hard topics. And I believe I have achieved that. That's why I'm a Muslim. Because when 30 years ago, when I looked to see when I looked at this one characteristic about Islam, that Islam is transparent. They don't try to trick people and hide evidence. Like, for example, look, you'll find some apologists here, I won't mention their name, 96% of their content is just attacking Islam. That is taqiyya.
Based.
Okay. Look, the issue here, if you are a true apologist, then it should at least be 50-50. And you should come to me and other critics and say, hey, I can prove to you the dependability, reliability of the gospel. It's a challenge. Do you see any of that here on Modern Day Debate? It doesn't exist. That's because they don't have the hit.
This is insane. God Logic literally hosts the debate all the time that Paul, right, is not a false prophet and that he's more moral than Muhammad. He does it all the time. I've watched him do it.
No.
And I built my career debating atheists. I only started debating Muslims seriously like 4 months ago.
John, okay, would you like to debate that topic with me? Is Paul a false
Which
prophet?
topic?
Is
Maybe
Paul
we'll talk
a
about
false
which you
prophet?
got 100 topics you want to debate. We'll talk.
Let's do no. First of all, I want to correct you. The scam of these people you are mentioning is that when it comes to you will never find any of these topics these people debating it. Rather, they have some live stream where they might debate the common guy might mention something about it in a live stream. That's about it. But when it comes to the Bible, the Quran, and modern science, Christianity has been running since 1996. That is a statement of fact. You can go on YouTube and show me any example of Christians taking this challenge. They don't. It's a standing challenge even till today.
This one from, do appreciate your question. Jolly Rancher says, question for Nadir. What criteria do you have to judge whether or not Aisha's narrations are accurate? Hadith scholars only verified isnad, not Aisha's accuracy.
No, among Sunni Muslims and Sunni Islam, it is believed that it is a mainstream that Aisha was dying. Now there is some people who do hold the view that she was actually much older than that. I'm not, and I've just looked at the evidence. I find it not as convincing. Now, of course, there is something which people do bring up, which is a very good point, is that look back then people didn't know how old they were. Like my mother and father, they don't know how old they are. That has been the case for many centuries. They have a good idea of how old they are. So in this example, they said, look, Aisha probably didn't have a good understanding of how old she was when this hadith was narrated, or they say maybe there was some mistake in that narration. I don't know. It's all conjecture.
You
I
got
think
it.
people know if they're roughly around the age of 9 versus 20. That's insane.
It could be 9 or 12 or something like that. Is what people are saying. It could be 9 to 13 is what some people say.
This one from, thank you very much, Actually Religious says, Nadir, if Islam is true, why do you have to use whataboutism and go to the Bible to make your points? Why can't you use Islam by itself? Islam is weak and false if it can't stand on its own.
Yeah. No, that's pretty stupid. This is not, I never argued what about. Again, I see the problem is you're getting hurt because you're embarrassed because the Bible has a forced vaginal examination upon girls, upon little girls. I didn't say, well, what about your religion? I never said that. I said, look, based on this standard of morality, then therefore the marriage of Aisha is not immoral. And I think that has gone uncontested tonight, that from a biblical point of view, the marriage of Aisha is perfectly fine. Islamically, it's perfectly fine. And the only dispute which arose is from a secular humanist point of view, which my poser opponent was trying to pose as. You should have came tonight to debate as a Christian, but he couldn't because of the embarrassing virginity test verse in his book.
That's insane because you're saying it's not whataboutism, right? It's not a tu quoque fallacy. You're deriving the morality from them, but you use a descriptive text to do that and not a prescriptive text. That's insane.
No, it's not insane. I'm just showing that, look, based on this standard of morality, the marriage is perfectly moral.
There's
That
no
is what I'm
morality
saying
in
here.
that verse. It's not talking about morality.
There's nothing
It's a
in the
description.
Bible that you can
It's an
show
event
me.
that happened.
Look, it's not saying, what about you? All I'm saying, show me
It
something
literally
in your
is.
Bible to show this marriage is immoral. If there's nothing
Ugh.
good, let's move on. All right.
This one, appreciate your question, is from It's Abdi says, question, Nadir, what criteria did Muhammad use to determine if Naisha reached puberty? How do we find this criteria since it's never mentioned in Hadith or Quran that Aisha
Yeah.
had her first menstruation or physical pubescent traits?
Yeah, no, we don't. There is really no evidence for it or against it inside the Hadith. This is something which majority of the Islamic scholars believe. I think almost all of them, that Aisha reached puberty. But can you really prove it versus not? No, we don't have that evidence. But what I'm saying is, look, people are innocent until proven guilty. If you are going to accuse somebody of crime, then the burden of proof is upon John to show no, she was not in puberty and saying stupid things like, oh, but she played with dolls. That shows how fake he is. FAIC.
Yeah, so I never made the argument that puberty is the standard. I was actually arguing against that. I think it's a ridiculous standard, but I made the argument that she hadn't even hit puberty yet, but you already conceded it's wrong. So we could simply say he's guilty because, hey, if you have sex with a child, you cause harm, right? He had sex with a child, so therefore he caused harm, so therefore he's guilty. We have all the evidence that he had sex with a child. There's a ridiculous amount of evidence. You want to bring in a new stipulation that says God magically protected her with his magic powers, just put her in a little bubble and nothing happened to her.
Yeah.
But even if that is true, he protected her, it's still wrong. Because if it wasn't wrong, he wouldn't need to protect her.
Yeah, that's circular reasoning. We've already debated this, endlessly, John. Don't try to, try to pull off a last minute win. You're very desperate. People have heard the debate.
I took
Let's
the
move
first
on.
minute win, bro.
Okay.
This is insane.
You have already conceded in the beginning that when I pointed out the hadith that this was divinely ordained, you said, okay, I'll just give you the win. You saw right at that minute that you were done. Okay. And then you're like, oh my God, let me go back and let me just try to find a way to win this. That's what
Dog,
happened
you're the
in
one
this
who
debate.
backtracked.
We
You
got you
backtracked.
on record saying, I'll just give you the W. I thought, what's a W?
And
It's
then
a
you
win.
didn't
I'm
take
like,
it because you
okay.
backtracked.
Because we wouldn't have a debate after that. You tried to find a way to pull this off. You see, the thing is, John, you saw you were defeated at the very opening. There's no point of going any further on this.
This question from, do you appreciate it? All right, that Orba says thanks for hosting this and complete. Let's see, W. John, God bless you all. Jamie Silva says, Nadir, if Allah created through His word, is it fair to say that Allah and His word share the same nature? If not, who created Allah or His
This is
word
all off
or both?
topic. This is off
Gotcha.
topic.
Big West says to Nadir, did you just admit to Aisha needing Allah's protection from Muhammad? You said God protected her, quote unquote, from what and who exactly?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is kind of going back to the point where I've explained very clearly that the marriage of Aisha was something which was God ordained. So God handles it from there on. Whatever took place, I don't go into the details, what took place in the bedroom or anything like that. But if this is from God and therefore God is a moral God, God will do whatever he has to do to make sure this marriage is moral, whether it's protection or anything like that. So that's the logic which I have presented tonight. So the issue tonight is it's conditional. Whether the marriage of Aisha was moral or not, it's conditional based on is Muhammad a true prophet, which we are going to debate at a later time.
This one from
So notice he never answered the question. Who and what was she being protected from?
I don't know. I mean, this is getting into the details of a child marriage. There's no details given there. Okay. So I have already said that we can.
You've had the birds and the bees talk, right? You know how it works?
Yeah.
When a mommy and daddy love each other?
The debate is over, John. We are here to answer questions. You're trying to find a way to pull this win
and
off.
what
It's
was
not
she
work
protected from, Nadir?
Probably nothing. Probably there was nothing there which even caused
So he
any
didn't
harm.
protect her.
I don't
he
know
was too
what
small.
took place
Because
there.
he was too small. He didn't cause any damage.
We're not going to
next
go
question.
there. That's so stupid.
Follower of Ichias says, Nadir Sahi al-Bukhari 6130 says, quote, dolls were forbidden, but it was okay for her because she hadn't yet reached puberty. According to this hadith, is it okay for a girl to play with dolls after puberty?
I'm sorry, I did not. What was that hadith again?
Sahih al-Bukhari 6130.
6130. Let me just read it real quick. Okay, that's actually something you're reading in the parentheses. They're saying it says over here, the playing of dolls and similar images is forbidden.
No
But it was
parentheses in
allowed
the
for
Arabic.
Aisha's time, as she was a little girl, not reached the age of puberty. This is somebody's commentary. This is not what the text says. Okay,
It's the al-Bukhari's commentary. There's no parentheses in the Arabic.
This is a commentary you're reading. This is somebody's opinion. There is no way that we have no evidence to say whether she was in puberty or not puberty. Okay.
Dog, why are you lying?
What are you talking about? Okay, you can read Arabic.
There's no parentheses in the Arabic.
No. Okay, I will share my screen here. Okay, let me share my screen, and we can see who's a liar here. Okay, you should. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. I'm gonna share the hadith right here in front of everybody. Okay, tell me if you can read this. Okay, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also
There's
used to
no
play with me.
parentheses in the Arabic.
Stop.
Look at the Arabic.
When Allah's messenger used to enter my dwellings, they used to hide themselves, but the Prophet would call them to join and play with me. Now the parentheses, this is the parentheses I'm talking about. This is from Fath al-Bari, page 143. This is the commentary, John. Do you see what I'm underlining there? The guy was quoting somebody's commentary. This is not from the actual text itself.
So it's not in the Arabic there?
No, it's not.
You read Arabic?
Yeah, I can read Arabic.
Can you read it in Arabic for us?
No, I'm not going to do that. We're going to move on. This is what the hadith is showing right here is very clear. That is a comment. That is a commentary somebody inserted in from Fath al-Bari with the
But even if that's true, you don't trust those
over there.
scholars, but you trust all the
Okay.
other scholars that agreed
Okay,
with you.
yes.
Got it.
Look, let's move on. You are trying to whip a dead horse here. You're not going to be able to prove Aisha was not at the age of puberty this way, John. Stop being desperate. It's embarrassing.
I can say just because she was 9. Sorry, James. Go ahead.
You guys certainly have chemistry. This one from Do Appreciate It. Big West says to Nadir, did you just admit to Aisha needing Allah? We got that one, sorry. Funky Mink says, if you looked at this channel, Nadir, you would see Made by Jim Bob debating science and the Bible all day. Jared Francis
That's true.
says, by the
No,
way,
that
Kent
actually not-
Hovind is returning in a few weeks, for
Mhm.
better or for worse. Jared Francis says, why does Iraq
Can I answer
allow...
that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, look, if you look at the people, let's say with the big YouTube channels, they will never debate the Bible, the Quran, and modern science. What you're seeing here are the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker who is trying to fill the void, but they're not debating scientific errors. They're not debating the topic, is it comparing the Bible and the Quran and science. They're not debating that due to the defeat they suffered at the hands of Dr. Zakir Naik. That has not been done since 1996, in spite of repeated challenges. So this is why I'm saying they don't have the honesty, integrity, and transparency. They know that their religions, that their book contains scientific contradictions in it, and that is why they are running away from this topic. As for, I think, some of the debates you're referring to, I think that's more talking about evolution or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll give you one example. In fact, you mentioned God Logic. That's a good example. Look, he is a runner. If you notice the scam they do here on MDD, they just debate the same topics over and over and over again. Why? Because the other topics, like the validity of the Bible, is the Bible God's word? How do we know Paul's the true prophet? How can we trust the Bible? Dr. Bart Ehrman, Richard Carrier, and all these other people have been waiting there for them to debate, but they ran away from Dr. Bart Ehrman. That's the scam which I'm telling you about. Okay, I'll give you a story.
Is he going to go on forever?
I used to do the job which James did. I used to try to arrange these debates, and this is back 30 years ago. The school used to give me $5,000 per debate. But the Christians always ran away from debating the validity of the Bible because they knew it is corrupt and it contains contradictions.
My only other debate on this channel was on the validity of the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I debated last time I was here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what you're doing, John.
Hold on. And the whole they don't use the Bible to argue science. Yeah, that would be a stupid debate because the Bible's not a science textbook.
It could still have scientific errors in it, right? That's taqiyya you're doing, John. You see, you will find the small guys, like you're a small guy, okay, who are trying to dibble and dabble into those topics. But if you look at the people with the big YouTube channels, David Wood, Sam Shimon, God Logic, no, they're not going to debate science in the Bible because of what happened in 1996.
Because it's a category error. It's a silly debate.
There are scientific, if it's all just a category error, then come forward. Let us look and see what's in your book. Let us see if it has scientific errors. In fact, I'm going to share my screen real quick here, just so I can show you something here. Look, go put this in your YouTube. Atheist critics accept Muhammed corrected 6 scientific errors in the Bible. These are people who don't like me, by the way, but they do accept that. Watch the video, John. Everybody here, watch this video, and you will see
of 6 random atheists saying "Yay, Islam."
No. Actually, just watch the video. Look at the evidence.
Our source.
Come
on, bro.
What I'm showing you, John. You see, you're trying to make an excuse for why your apologists run away and they don't have the honesty, integrity, and transparency that Muslims have, and it doesn't work. All right, they should have, and there's many, many topics which they run away from. I'm just naming just a few.
This one from Do Appreciate It. Jared Francis says, why does Iraq allow 9-year-old girls to get married? parentheses, when on the night they consummate the marriage,
Mhm.
if Muhammad didn't consummate when Aisha was 9.
But nobody is encouraging people to go marry 9-year-old girls. So now this is very interesting what's happening here. You see, he's
This is
going to
another lie.
what is happening here is they're trying to get out of the Islamic scriptures to what people are doing in Afghanistan or Iraq. Oh, what about this right here? Why? Because they realized you cannot make a case from the Islamic scriptures. So alhamdulillah, thank you for going there. That shows a hasty retreat from our scriptures.
All ham and dill pickle as well. Yeah, so I've spoken to probably, I don't know, hundreds of Muslims who've literally said that sleeping with children is perfectly fine. It's on my channel. You can go watch it. So what are you talking
No,
about?
they didn't. It's all hearsay baloney you're trying to present
From
here.
Muslims.
Hearsay evidence. You know, it is not
From
admissible in a
Muslims. You
court
said
of
no
law.
Muslims are saying it.
Yeah. Do you know what hearsay evidence is? Hearsay evidence is when
Yeah,
you
I
try to
heard the Muslims say
allow
that
me
they
to
want to
finish.
sleep with children.
Hearsay evidence is where you try to quote somebody, but they are not in the courtroom to defend themselves on what that
I
position
have it on
is.
video.
Okay, well, that the issue, but like I said, I'm glad where this discussion is going. It's getting away from the Islamic scriptures because you know from Quran, Hadith, you're not going to make your case from there.
This one, do appreciate your question. Follower of Ixius says, but for Nadir, it could say, according to medical research, the cavity depth of an average 9-year-old is a couple inches. And for Momo not to damage her, he would have to be smaller.
Yeah, this is all heckling, mocking. I'm not going to get into this type of discussions. I think the case was made.
Why did you engage in
Yeah.
a debate about sex if
Hold
you don't
on.
want to talk about
No,
sex?
no, I'm not going to talk
How
about
does
the.
sex work?
Okay, John. I'm not going to get into these type of discussions. Okay, I think the case was made. You could talk about it if you want. I think the case was
You're
made
not going
where
to
we
talk about
talked
sex
about
in a debate about
where
sex.
we have already talked about that this is something divinely ordained and God will protect this marriage or any kind of harm. Okay.
Well, my opponent just shows that he's too afraid to say like words like penis and vagina. We're all grown-ups, right? It's a conversation about sex and sexual intercourse and whether or not it harms somebody. It's just a fact. If you got a member that's an average size and you put it in someone that's a child who's not, right, the normal size, it's going to hurt them. It's going to do damage, but you don't want to engage in it because you know it cooks you.
It's already been refuted. That's why we don't have to go into the details. It's already been refuted.
D34D says Aisha was a child. It doesn't matter what other worldview has an opinion on it. Even Christianity, it is wrong. Momo did wrong. The Bible makes marriage between two adults.
I love this. I love this question because what the questioner is realizing is the standards which I've presented, Islamic, secular, Christian standards. The marriage of Aisha is perfectly moral. So this guy is realizing that. He said, okay, well, I don't care about any kind of those morals. I'm not those moral standards. I know I'm not going to be able to make a case from there. So I'm just saying that it's wrong. So this is called being bad. Born again, double down. You just double down. I said so. So I like where the discussion is going. It shows that I've argued an airtight case for the morality of this marriage.
Yeah, so it's not that I said so. We both agreed on the standard of morality. It's just that you said so, that God protected her.
This one from, do appreciate your question. F it button says, being honest about being the great person who likes children. What color Timberwolf? I don't know what that means. Jolly Rancher says, humanist paradigm does not grant God, so it's immoral.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm confused by that too. They said humanist paradigm doesn't grant God, so it's immoral.
The humanist, well, so now he's coming into, if you look at from a secular point of view, right, like where they don't grant that this is from God, which is pretty much what my opponent was trying to debate here from a secular humanist point of view. I said, okay, then you got, that's going to force you to reject the hadith where it said this was divinely ordained. Once you reject the hadith, that gives me equal right to reject the hadith of Aisha being 9 years old. So then, therefore, there's no problem. Once you start cherry picking and knocking out this hadith is not valid or this hadith like that. So Therefore, it's a self-defeating, argument there. But by the way, James, how much more time do we got? Because I got to get going very soon here.
We can wrap up shortly. Let's
Okay.
see. If you can give me maybe just another 20 minutes, I'll try to
Okay,
like
sure, no
rapid
problem.
fire through these.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, if it's pithy.
Yeah, I don't know why Nadir didn't want to take his W. If he wants to reject the hadith and say Aisha was 19 years old, I'll give him his W.
Yeah.
Dog.
Well,
Go ahead, Nadir, if you want a pithy response.
yeah, I think you have already given me the W, and I didn't know what it was. You told me it was the win when you came across and you realized that the marriage of Aisha wasn't done based upon improper uh, intentions or desire for a child. Right there,
Well,
90% of your opening presentation was defeated right there. So that is why you decided to surrender in the opening of our debate. But then, it was too early. I thought, let's just keep debating this. And then you try to bring up hypotheticals. What if Muhammad wasn't a true prophet or something like that? So, we'll let the audience decide who got the W.
They
there's no
did.
problem. I hate to do it. We just have to move fast because we. To be fair, Nadir is in Eastern time, so I think for him it's like 11:34 p.m. Dog
Right.
Badger says God and Science debate 12/24 March 26th. Planned debates Pinker debate 2026 Faith and Science Conference
Yeah.
2024. Nadir, I think they're
Yeah.
saying these are debated often.
No, they're not discussing the scientific errors in your book, like the virginity test, like the Bible says that the mustard seed is the smallest seed that you plant into the ground. And it's not comparing the Bible and the Quran and modern science, which was what Dr. Zakir Naik basically debated back in 1996. So, no, there is no honesty, integrity, and transparency in Christianity. Only the religion of Islam does. Again, you go look at the guys of the big channels, look at, and I won't mention their names, but you could see that there's a lot of missing topics there. And one of the biggest one is Paul a demon-possessed prophet? Now, we used to debate those back in 1990, in the 90s. I was there. I used to do what James was doing, just arrange it, And so what happened was the Christians were getting defeated, exposed badly, which they do admit. If you talk to those people, they say, yes, we lost a debate with Dr. Zakir Naik. And then they issued blackout orders that they are topics we will never debate again. And the Bible, the
Let's move
Quran,
to
and
the
modern
next one.
science was one of them. All
This is a
right.
problem. App
Who's
Frenzy
issuing
says,
these blackout orders? Who's our boss who's issuing these things?
I can tell you who it was. It was Sam. If you go talk to him, email Sam Shimon. He was actually there
Sam
on the
Shamoon's the
stage.
boss.
Well, the story was he was there on the
yeah,
stage with Dr.
sounds.
Zakir
Oh, we
Naik.
have to. I hate to do it, but we have
Yeah,
so people
I can
know
give
who
you
to
the
ask.
names.
Appy Frenzy says Nadir didn't show any single proof about Aisha being able to narrate 2,000 hadith. He could not find any verse to run to,
Hmm.
any Bible verse.
Well, yeah, I mean the issue about Aisha narrating thousands of hadiths, you just open up Sahih Bukhari, you open up the hadith collection, you will see hadith after hadith narrated by Aisha. It is a common, it is an undisputable fact. You can go ahead and use your ChatGPT, Google, whatever, and that is something nobody denies. So the point here, what is so amazing is that a child, she began to document like a historian the life and biography of Prophet Muhammad. And then she, throughout her life, narrated 2,000 hadith. This is not something a human being can do. And that shows it supports the evidence for the
We
divine
have to
claim
go.
of the hadith.
MRY Lixindra says God says that whoever wishes harm against one of his children, then they should have a millstone wrapped around their necks and be thrown into the ocean. This one
Based.
from Main says question Nadir. Oh, by the way, folks, we can't take any more questions because we do want to wrap up so Nadir can get a decent night of sleep. And hit that like button. Main says question for Nadir. Muhammad is the best example for mankind for all time. Following Momo's footsteps, will you marry a 6-year-old girl and have sex with a 9-year-old today?
Okay, can I share my screen real quick and I can go ahead and answer that for you. So let us go to the hadith and see what is recommended for us for who we should marry and the conditions on that. So I think that's going to go ahead and answer your question. So I'm just going to share my screen here real quick because I didn't get a chance to actually answer this question in the debate. So I'll do it right. Oh, no, not that. Let me try it again. Share. Here we go. Okay, so based on this hadith, it says a woman may be married for 4 reasons: her property, her status, her beauty, and her religion. The word there is deen. It's more than meaning religious, not just her theology, but her overall view of life on this. So try to get the one who has deen, religion. May your hand be besmirched. So my point is this: if you really follow this hadith and look for a woman based upon deen, you are not going to wind up with a 9-year-old. You're going to wind up with somebody in their 20s. Okay, so let us keep going here. It states over here that a father gave in her marriage when she was a matron, and she disliked the marriage. So she went to Allah's messenger and he declared the marriage invalid. The point here is, if you go to a child's room and say, hey, you're going to marry this guy over here, they're going to go, well, I don't like that. So a woman's
Doesn't
permission.
matron mean older?
Well, this actually goes for. Let me show you the next study. This goes for even a virgin girl. It says a virgin should not be given in marriage until her permission is sought. So
Can you read
my
the rest
point
of it?
here, yeah, and her
Finish the
silence is her permission. Why?
Little
Because it
9-year-old girl
shows.
sitting there quietly. That
Yeah,
means yes.
yeah. If this is a marriage which a person doesn't like, they're going to be crying. They're going to be screaming, "Oh, mommy, I don't want to marry this person." Okay, when it says her silence is her permission, because this is something called
Unless she's scared.
Stop interrupting me. This is something called the adab, which mean the traditions and customs, and it is even done today that a woman, from her shyness, she can just stay silent. And when the guy says,
Just
"Okay,
remember,
you want to
boys,
marry her?" This happens at every marriage ceremony because you're
if
ignorant.
she doesn't
You
say
don't
no,
know.
it's a go.
So, like when you go to an Islamic marriage ceremony, the Muslim, you could say imam, goes to the woman and she asks her, "Do you want to will you take this man for your husband?" She
And
stays
if she sits there
silent.
silently, it's
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, and that means a yes. You can go to any kind of wedding reception and see. So the problem is,
We must
John,
go to
you're
the next
being
one.
fake. You're just making fake, false assumptions.
This one from Peg Dog says Surah 65:4 says the waiting period to remarry the prepubescent girl is 3 months and not to wait until maturity.
Yeah, so if there is but like I said, Islam does not encourage marriage with a child. The hadith which I quoted for you is you should look for a woman based upon her deen. May your hands be besmirched. So this is a
Why doesn't it just
condemnation
say?
for people who
Why
don't do
doesn't it
that.
just say, like, if it's supposed to be correcting, why doesn't it say that she should not be remarried? Why does it continue to say that she should wait before getting married again?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
In
What's your question?
65, her her waiting period is the waiting period before getting married again to make sure that she isn't pregnant.
Right.
So
what's
why
your point?
is it saying, why doesn't it say, okay, well, she hasn't menstruated yet, therefore you shouldn't marry her, even though she was already married once, the next person shouldn't. No, it says her waiting period is 3 months to get married again. So it seems to be saying, yeah, go ahead, do it.
No, it's not telling you to go ahead and do anything. It's telling you, here's what you do when you come across this situation. The hadith is very clear. It said, may your hands be besmirched if you don't follow this advice on who you should marry. And based on that, you're not going to wind up with a kid. It's over.
This one from Do Appreciate It. F it button says, is a statement of fact a factual statement? No, just obfuscation about minor marriage. Imagine not being able to answer a single question directly due to guilt. Do you remember the question they said? Is a statement of fact a factual statement? No.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
Neither.
This one from Gamma Rata says, people in the shorts chat be like, I don't know what that means. Is this some sort of
That's a reference. That's a reference to me.
Okay. This one from IU says, Nadir, Sanan Abi Dawud 3903 says Aisha was only sent to Muhammad after she was fattened up with cucumbers and dates, not that she reached puberty. How do you respond?
Oof.
Yeah, it's for first of all, that is scientifically incorrect. You don't get fattened up eating cucumbers. You actually lose weight eating cucumbers. Okay, and vegetables. I actually am doing the same
We're
thing
just
myself
breaking
here.
the law of
So
thermodynamics here
the issue here
again.
is once again people are making false assumptions upon the text. There, see, and I like what's happening here. I love what's happening here. They're trying to help John. They're like, John, the only way you can win this is if you could try to prove that Aisha was prepubescent. So they're doing their best they can do. And I do appreciate and I'm sure John appreciates the gallant effort on behalf of the questioners. They're trying to help you out, John. But what I will tell you today, every attempt to try to show Aisha was prepubescent is going to fail. It is no use helping John at this point. As I said, he's already given the win at the very beginning because he realized that there's no point of going on in light of my opening presentation. Okay, you're not going to be able to prove Aisha was prepubescent.
Yeah, listen. Okay, how does one not gain weight when consuming calories?
No, you're not going to gain weight eating cucumbers.
Does
Okay, no.
does cucumbers contain calories?
It's very little.
If you consume enough calories, will you gain weight?
No, I don't think you would have to eat so many cucumbers to the point you're sick of it. It just doesn't have the calorie impact that like, breads and other
Oh,
foods
sure,
have
sure,
and sugar.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, that's fine. But you're not going to lose weight.
You're not going to get fat eating cucumbers.
This
know,
one
challenge
from
accepted.
Funky Mink says, Nadir, how about half of DebateCon 6 that had atheists versus Christians? They didn't run then. Big John Steele W's.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know about DebateCon 6, but if you notice that, no, you're trying to prove that Christianity has the same hit as Islam. No, it doesn't. Okay.
Thank
If
God.
you notice that hit is honesty, integrity, and transparency. If you notice the topics which these Christians are debating, it's the same ones that are rinse and repeat, and 90% of it is not even defending the Bible. It's basically attacking Islam. 90% of it. But Alhamdulillah, for me, when you look at my debate, it's the other way around. I think it's something like 70 to 80% Islam related topics. That's what you call a true apologist, that you debate and defend the truth claims of your religion, whatever the argument is, whether it's Aisha, whether it's jihad, whatever it is. Christians don't do that. Okay, so no, and there's only, when we talk about who are the true apologists here, only the Islamic debaters are the true apologists. Why? Because we debate and defend all the arguments on our religion. If someone says, hey, I challenge you on Quran and science, good, I'm there. I'll lead you. I'll lead the debate there.
70,000 times.
Christians don't
I just
do
want
that.
to go. I want to go back to the last thing that we were just talking about real quick. 100-gram serving of dates is about 282 calories.
I don't know.
Dates and cucumbers, my friend. You're getting her fat.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I could be wrong, but I just think that if she was just eating dates and cucumbers, you're not going to get fat. I don't think so.
282 calories per 100 grams.
This one, do appreciate your question from RS Sid says, Nadir, I'll prove you've lied so much today. If I proved you lied, you'll promise you'll delete and never show your face on stream again. Agree?
Well, I do welcome the opportunity for you to prove that I'm lying. But I love this question here.
He said, if I'm
because
wrong, $5,000 on me to you.
okay. But then who's going to be the judge of that? We'll let James or whoever or somebody be the judge of that. And so, yeah, I mean, if that is your challenge, that you can prove that I'm lying, I accept it. Again, this goes back to the hit of Islam: honesty, integrity, and transparency. We are hiding nothing like the Christians, the Hindus, the Jews, and other people. Then, I accept all of that. I'm ready.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying you are willing to never show your face again.
Well, I'm not going to never show my
If
face
James,
again, but
James says you're
I'll
a
take
liar
on the
I'll take
internet.
the $5,000 though.
No,
Oh yeah, of course.
you're not willing to like risk your, potential loss. You only want the upside.
If I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong, but I'm still going to appear. I still want to come back on modern day debate. Don't take
Well,
that away from me.
they say
Else
they're
I'll have
gonna
nothing.
they say allegedly they're gonna prove you're lying. I like
Okay, sure. But I see the thing is, they're trying to do the job John is supposed to be doing here. What they're doing, they're not satisfied with his debate performance. So they're trying to win the debate after the debate. They're like, okay, I can prove you wrong, Nadir, because John couldn't do nothing up here. So I like these
yeah,
kind of
that's what
questions.
they said.
Is your hand getting sore patting your own back? Like, what's going on here, man?
They're patting my back. Okay, that's an embarrassment for you, John. That
I listen, man. You're
other
right.
people in the question
I got
time
absolutely
are
cooked
trying
in
to
this
do your
debate.
job.
I got absolutely cooked. You're absolutely right.
Look,
I'm embarrassed. I might not show myself tomorrow.
John,
So
no, none of these people in the questions even borrowed your arguments and say, "Look, John made a good point here, and he trapped you in this, and you just wiggled your way out," or blah blah.
you're
No,
right. I've been
John,
reading the
they're
chat. They've been
trying to
roasting me pretty
win the
hard.
debate after the debate that they saw. That is dissatisfaction, John.
I'm known to
RSSI
dissatisfy.
RSSID 5372 strikes again, says I'll transfer money to modern day debate, the $5,000 I promise, but they say it's only if you are willing to say that you will delete your internet presence forever.
No,
I
I can't.
disagree. Hold on. Can I answer this one? I
Go ahead.
disagree. I think, Nadir, I think you should become one of the faces for Islam, and I think you should continue to debate, and I think you should be the main person we put right up there to defend Islam. I support you every step of the way.
Well, thank you, John. I
You're
never knew you.
welcome.
I never knew you thought of me that way.
I think very highly of your Islamic
Well, thank you.
apologetics, and I think you should be
Thank
the
you.
face of Islam.
Okay,
Wow.
but I have no hair. I don't know how that's going to work.
Well, in your face you do. This one from Big League
Yeah.
Drew says, how would you feel if you didn't have breakfast today, Nadir? I think Nadir got asked this last time. Nadir.
I would feel hungry.
John, how would you feel if you didn't have breakfast today?
How would it feel if I skip breakfast all the time? I fast all the time, so it's fine for me.
So, like, fine for you as in not hungry.
Yeah, I don't even think I had breakfast today.
Wow. But yes, folks, thank you so much for your questions. I do want to let these guys go as it is late. They've already been here for 2 hours 50 minutes. So huge thank you. Check out
Yes.
both of our guests in the description box. That includes the podcast. You can find both John and Nadir's links here in the description box on YouTube, but also at the podcast, which you can find at fine podcast apps everywhere, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Modern Day Debate is on that podcast app. And you can find our links in the description box there too if you're listening later. And hit that like. We're only 30 likes away from 600. People really enjoyed this. Like, people were just jazzed. So
Oh, wonderful.
thank you, John and Nadir. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
With that,
All
folks,
right,
I'll be
guys.
back
Bye.
in a moment.
See you,
So
Nadir.